live stream.
If not, we can take pictures so we can send them.
Good morning and welcome to the 2022 Oregon New Venture Championship Finals Round. My name is Nathan Lilligard. I am the director of our competition and I am pleased to welcome you to our finals event today. We have 4 teams competing for $20,000 first prize, and we have some fantastic ventures and entrepreneurs that are going to share their stories with you today. Let me first begin by introducing our judges. To my left, we have Michelle Tinsley, COO and co-founder of Yellowbird Holdings, a platform to match environmental health and sciences business and safety workers with businesses that need them.
Yes.
Next to her is Ben Nahir. Ben is the principal of, it's too early, the principal of Elevate Capital and also a leader of Thai Angels here in the Pacific Northwest. Diane Freeman is joining us for the 10th year. Diane is the managing director of Voyager Capital based here in Portland. Voyager is a large venture capital firm based in Seattle, but Diane is our local leader. And lastly, Anthony Rodeo, CEO and co-founder of Your Mechanic, a platform for mobile mobility and repairs for your car. So welcome, judges. Quickly go over the rules. You've got 30 minutes interruptible time. So at any time, the judges may interrupt you, ask you questions. So you got to be ready to dance when they say dance, when they ask you questions. And I will be keeping track of time. I'll have in the back there, 5, 2, and 1 minute warnings. With that, do you have any questions?
No.
All right.
I have a question.
You do have a question?
Yeah, you're going to be timing back there. Will you let us know when it's 2 minutes or something? Just so
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, I will. I will come down there and give you a signal. Cool. You guys ready?
Yeah.
All right. I'll turn your back on. There we go.
Can I just check if this works? Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Is that lighting okay, Matt?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. All right. Take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Dhruv. These are my co-founders, Varun and Arman. And our company is Beam Commerce. We build software to boost sales for e-commerce stores. Since submitting our business plan, we've launched 2 new products, doubled our user base, and increased our revenue substantially. Our execution velocity has made our business plan outdated. A month ago, when we pitched at the NVC group round, our monthly recurring revenue was $35,000. In the upcoming month, we expect to do $50,000 in monthly recurring revenue, still fully bootstrapped, because what I'm about to show you is incredibly effective. Over the last several years, the cost of digital marketing has increased by 17.5 times. And this affects all businesses. The small retailers relying on Facebook ads to stay above the water, and the large direct-to-consumer brands whose million-dollar marketing budgets couldn't account for this. The world thinks e-commerce is booming. And although it is gaining popularity, the infrastructure that allows e-commerce businesses to acquire customers is slowly collapsing. Store owners are looking for ways to increase the average amount an existing customer is spending on their store. Spending more and more on ads is just not an option anymore. But when a customer is shopping online, there's a million questions going through their mind. What's the best color? Will they like it? What's the right size? And this can be a little overwhelming at times. But there's a feeling of incredible excitement and euphoria when they've just decided what they're going to buy and they complete the checkout process. We call this the transaction moment. And that moment is magical. You have their undivided attention, and there's a huge opportunity to change both the customer relationship, but also change the economics of that transaction. And that's why we built Aftersell. Normally, after a customer completes their checkout, they're usually redirected to an order confirmation or a thank you page. Aftersell changes this by implementing a new page with offers that appear after that checkout, but before the thank you page. The customer can then accept the offer without having to re-enter any of their information. Customers are 7 times more likely to engage with these offers because they've just completed a transaction. The interesting thing, though, is that e-commerce is just getting started. The pandemic accelerated the adoption of e-commerce by over 10 years. To put this into perspective, this is how many more people would use food delivery services, such as Uber Eats, more frequently after the pandemic. And this is how many more people would use video conferencing platforms, such as Zoom, more frequently after the pandemic. And this is how many more people would shop online more frequently after the outbreak. E-commerce is here to stay. And this makes e-commerce apps one of the largest markets.
Can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah, for sure.
So is the assumption here that that growth would not have occurred? I mean, obviously it accelerated that growth, but
Yeah.
is the assumption here that the growth in e-commerce, direct-to-consumer, promotions, real-time after, customer data platforms, all this stuff would not have gotten us there, or that this accelerated the pace?
Yeah, it accelerated the pace. That's what the study was sort of illustrating.
And is that 48%, is that net new business, or is that a combination of people who already shop online buying more and people who wouldn't shop online buying, or is it one or the other?
So this is like a study that McKinsey did, surveying a bunch of people. I think it was a very large sample size in like their annual report on e-commerce, and is basically saying, would you use Uber Eats after the pandemic, or is this something that you're only using because you can't go outside and buy food? Same with online shopping. Are you only doing this because you can't go outside and like shop in person? And so this was like the equivalent of like, this is how many people that said that would continue after the pandemic.
And how much of that 48% was driven by Amazon?
I couldn't tell you, to be honest. Sorry. So the total market size is $37.5 billion. Our business model is a subscription-based business model. We charge based on the order volume of the store. So it's just, we charge based on how many orders the store does per month. And Aftersell is our only paid app right now, but we have other apps along with
Can you go back
Aftersell.
to that, please?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Why are you only distinguishing order volume and not average order value?
Yeah, so the average order value changes based on what the store is selling, right? So if you have a higher value product, that average order value is different. And then when you start getting into the percentages of like a % increase in average order value or a % of the total value we drive, and I'll go into it later, we drive $35 million in additional revenue so far. If we charge a percentage of that, merchants start looking at it as like part of their margin. And that ends up being like, there's a bad sentiment around that to e-commerce merchants as opposed to charging based like a flat fee based on the order volume. And so like as we're taking our other newer apps paid, what we're doing is we're testing a flat plus some sort of usage-based model. So it'll be like a flat, let's say like $10 plus X dollars for usage. And so we're testing a bunch of different pricing models. This is like the first one that we tested, and then we've like fine-tuned the parameters. So like the max used to be like $100, and now it's like $800, and then so we're just improving that. But charging a percentage is generally like to e-commerce merchants like frowned upon.
So what's the dollar volume, and I don't need to know the 201 to 500, but the 501 to 4,000, how does that equate to, I mean, this feels SME-ish, but this 2001 to 4,000 sort of gets you, again, it depends on the product, gets you sort of at another level. So what size, as you're doing your go-to-market, as you're looking at how to qualify, you could be in the 4,000 orders, but they're all, $1 a piece, or they could be $10,000 a piece. So do you care about that?
Yeah, so generally, like if your products cost a lower amount, you're doing a much higher order volume, and so that you would probably be in like this range. If you're like, I don't know, charging like $2 or $5 for your product, you're probably doing like 8,000 orders. If you're a larger store, obviously not for all stores.
Right, so the focus really is an SME, right?
Yeah, so as far as we've done it so far, we've sort of, and Armand will talk about it in a bit, but we basically have 3 customer segments: drop shippers, SMEs, and then enterprise, like large scale D2C brands. So far, Aftersell's like largest percentage of users are SMEs, and over time we're moving up market, and so these plans are going to get more and more expensive over time, and that's the goal, is to move these up market.
I was going to ask, so are the orders self-disclosed by the merchant, or you're tracking these for them?
We track it.
Okay. And then what if they're using, say, both Shopify and an Amazon marketplace? You have no visibility to that other platform?
Exactly. So right now we only integrate with Shopify.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does this model out, so the 35K MRR to the 50 or whatever, when you're talking to these folks, it feels like what's happening is they're using the ability to get to the transaction sooner, but what they're driving is a promotion.
Yeah. So
that promotion costs them something,
The promotion is only after the purchase.
No, right,
Yeah.
but in their operating plan, so fine, your product works, you
Yeah.
get to the transaction faster.
Yeah.
But what then happens in their business is they're driving a promotion, which is a discount. It's a loyalty
Sure,
issue,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
So how do you explain really what the ROI on this is such that when they start to model out the promotion value,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example rather than, because every store has different needs. I'll give you an example. So one of the stores that uses Aftersell is a store called Feastables by the YouTuber Mr. Beast. And one of the things that they did when they launched their store, it launched in like January, they expected their highest selling product to be the almond chocolate rather than the regular chocolate flavor that they had. It didn't happen. So almond was not the highest selling chocolate, it was the regular. They started fearing that this would have lower repeat purchases because they expected almond to have higher repeat purchases. And so they started using Aftersell to drive the almond to increase the repeat purchases, and they saw an increase. We sold 80,000 bars of almond in like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. And that was like the value they got. They didn't even care about the extra whatever dollars that they made on Aftersell. It was the retention,
But they will,
customer
they
retention.
will care about the after dollars. I mean,
Yeah.
what has already happened on the enterprise side
Yeah.
is the VP of marketing would say, I know how to get this, I
Yeah.
know what we need to do, and we're gonna offer a discount. Forget how
Yeah.
they got there.
For sure.
And when you got into any kind of high volume, that discount hit the bottom line
For sure.
and went red blinking light at the
Yeah.
point where you really measured it.
Yeah. And
Right.
so we don't get into the operations of
I know you
the
don't.
store for sure.
Right.
I think that the point I was trying to illustrate was per store the value is very different. Like for Feastables, it was about driving repeat purchases. For Good American, which is another store, it's just about increasing the dollars that they're making post purchase on the promotion. Some of them don't even offer discounts. It's just let's just show another
Show
product that
another
they might
product.
like. And so it varies so much per store. The only way we show calculable ROI in the dashboard is just the amount you're paying divided by the amount we drive you, and then that's the percentage.
So
because
you
that's the
don't, you
minimum.
don't measure the distance between it's taking you 3 months today to meet
Yeah.
your goals, and now it's taking you 1 month because of this. That's
Yeah.
not your value prop.
We can't measure it based on we can't auto measure it, but
Yeah.
if I do a sales call or I do a sales follow up
Yeah.
and then we have it, that's something we can do.
Is your
Yeah.
product telling them what product to put into this interstitial page before the thank you page? Or is that part of the value, is you're driving better conversion? Or are you relying on Mr. Beast to tell you he wants almond chocolate in that place and what the offer is going to be? So
Yeah.
are you just create a page? Or do you have some kind of technology that's recommending you show the almond one at 10% off based on the user behavior of the session they had?
For sure. So it could be either. For Mr. Beast, it was the almond because that was their goal, like I said. If you have 1,000 SKUs, you're not going to have that specific thing, and so we do have recommendations. And what's really neat about things like Shopify and these platforms is you'll have your own data source provider, and we can integrate with that. You'll have we also have our own algorithms, and I'll get into that as well in terms of what our technology is. But generally, that's what that is how it goes. We do both. So we have these other apps that help with order tracking, store design, et cetera. We have over 7,000 active businesses using our apps. And we are taking all of our apps to paid plans. So Aftersell is the only paid app right now. All of the other apps are free. We're taking all of our apps paid by Q3 this year. And we expect to do $50,000 in monthly recurring revenue next month.
Is the pricing model on, when you open up, the rest of them going to be on the same formula of number of orders, or?
It'll be what I was mentioning earlier. Depending on the app, it'll be different. But one of the things that we do want to test now is a flat plus usage. So it'll be usage based on how many orders you're tracking, for example, plus some flat fee for the features like traditional SaaS.
How do you perceive that you're going to be able to manage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pricing models?
Yeah.
i.e., I'm your salesperson.
Yeah.
I'm dialing for dollars here.
Yeah.
And now I have to have a conversation with the customer, and I'm going to explain to them 5 different pricing models?
Yeah, so this is how we test these pricing models. The idea is that, and we'll get into what we need this money for from the competition, but we want to build out bundled pricing. So when we do sales calls, it's different, right? When we do a sales call, we can create custom pricing models and say, hey, if you download Trackaroo, Aftersell, and PPF, we'll give it to you for $1,500 a month. And that'll be a bundled pricing model that you'll be able to check out with, and we convert you on 3 apps, and that's one of our key competitive advantages is our apps work so well together that that would make sense.
Thank you.
Yep, of course. And the metric we're most excited about is the value we're able to drive our customers. Our merchants have made over $35 million in additional revenue using our apps. Our competitors have been around for a long time, and they've done an incredible job at laying the foundation for e-commerce to grow into what it is today. But we have a few key competitive advantages. First, we're building an ecosystem of apps that share data. E-commerce apps were created to help store owners do some of the extra work of running an online business. But this got more crazy with more apps, since the apps themselves would have their own problems. They're too hard to set up, they don't talk to each other, or they're incompatible with your store theme. Beam is a suite of apps that uses the same design pattern so anyone technical or non-technical can set up the apps in under 5 minutes. We offer seamless interoperability, which means our apps talk to each other about everything. And we use smart algorithms to make our apps connect with all store themes right out of the box.
So is this entirely self-serve? Getting back to Diane's question about being a salesperson, dialing for dollars.
Yeah.
I mean, are you doing any outbound sales, or is this purely discovery-based?
Our largest sort of acquisition channel is discovery. We do outbound sales, but it's more for awareness rather than we don't need to get on the computer and set it up with them.
Right.
You can set it up yourself. That's the whole point. Is it should be that easy. You don't need a developer to set it up for you. But we do sales calls just to drive the volume of the higher value, higher enterprise sales.
So how are you building pipeline?
So Armand will get into that, but we have a cold email pipeline, which we cold email LinkedIn. I think we do SEO, all sorts of things. Yeah.
So the competition, which we can discuss later on as well, I think you're competing for dollars with buckets of types of technology that is not may not see as a direct competitor, but you're the economic buyer, and the budget attached to that
Yeah.
is the same dollars you're having to go to.
For
So,
sure.
I mean, have you guys looked at that? There's the whole world of direct-to-consumer apps. We're watching customer data platforms begin to come down out of the high enterprise business, et cetera. They're going after similar, unless you're really in small, unless that the argument is the way that we're getting first to market here is where it's really not SME, it's really S, and coming up the stovepipe of these other folks.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, I think your competition is broader.
Yeah, for sure. So I only put the 3 logos. I agree that there's 7,000 apps on Shopify, and in each category you have different
not even
different
on
competitors.
Shopify.
Yeah, across the
Right.
board for sure. I think the way we look at it is there's when you look at these long term, we steal a lot of customers. The way we get a lot of our customers is we're able to take from our competitors. And one of the reasons that happens so often is along with the transition from people going from these large data, expensive data platforms to now having access to these data platforms at smaller levels, that also means that the actual marketing people, they don't need a development team to go and test out a post-purchase upsell. Less than 5% of the entire e-commerce landscape actually does post-purchase upselling. I think half of that is probably Amazon. And that's because traditionally you needed the developer and IT team to actually do a lot of these things. Now you shouldn't. And that's one of the things that hasn't happened in e-commerce apps for a long time. That's one of the things that we do, the 5-minute setup time versus our competitors who need a developer to insert a code snippet. That changes so much of our sales pipeline, and that's why we are able to organically, as we're talking, we're getting probably 20, 30 merchants just signing up all the time. And that's because it doesn't take a sales team to close these merchants, and it doesn't take a developer to set up the apps. And then there's this entire advantage of using multiple of our apps. And so we have this pipeline of you install one app, you're going to install another and another and another until you use all of our apps. And yeah, that's exactly what I was talking about. We have a multi-app business model which allows us to sell multiple solutions to the same customer. This gives them a consolidated source of great tooling, but it also means that our customers, the more they try more and more of our products, they tend to like it. They tend to try more.
How many of your customers today, which obviously the revenue's coming just from the one app,
Yeah.
how many of those customers are actually already using the other 4
Yeah.
apps for free? But
So, yeah, that's a really good question. So I think in Armand's part, we're going to talk about how each app is sort of it moves way faster in terms of the growth rate. So when Trackaroo launched, it took 3 weeks to get to 300 users, and that's because, sorry. It took 3 weeks to get to 300 users, and after-sale took 16 weeks to get to 300 users. And the major contributor of that was us just cross-selling our apps to more and more customers. So this isn't our only customer who quotes that they've tried out multiple beat maps. Like, we have lots and lots, and that's how every single app we release grows faster and faster. And that also means our business model economics is a lot. It just works. We're able to charge, for example, half the amount that a competitor will charge for a single app, but then we can make it up, probably make way more every single app we're able to cross-sell on top of that.
Do you have any churn?
Yeah, for sure. I think, what's our average churn? Do you guys know? 5%-ish? Yeah, 5%. Yeah.
Monthly or annual?
Monthly. And that's largely, it considers like Shopify's closed stores and Shopify's churn. So if you look at like the bottommost tier of our customers that are like new stores, that's very different than the larger stores. So like the paying or like the revenue churn is a lot lower than our logo churn, because like the logo churn considers like small stores that close.
So what's your revenue churn?
Be a bit less than that, like 5.5%, around probably like 3 to 4%, right?
Monthly.
It's been tricky to calculate because like our pricing is order volume based, right? So like people can fluctuate between different plans.
Yeah.
Like let's say that during Black Friday, Cyber Monday, their store does really well, which is like often the case. Like how do you attribute that to like like expansion revenue or like churn revenue, like if their store shrinks? So to be honest, it's like a little bit tricky to calculate for us.
Okay.
But yeah, I think like approximately what he said.
And then our third competitive advantage is our memorable brand. We used to build e-commerce stores ourselves, and so we have deep personal relationships with some of the top influencers in the e-commerce space, which gives us access to platforms that a lot of other like app providers don't have access to. Alongside this, we also invest into brand assets that people can easily identify and associate with BMaps. Together, we see the impact of this and how many of our customers actually use after selling as a verb to replace post-purchase upselling, and this trickles down into how many of our installs come directly from people searching after sell instead of post-purchase upsell or something like that.
So a quick question on the brand, because I actually, when I was reading this, got a little mentally confused with Afterpay,
Yeah, for sure.
which has got a big consumer presence. So how do you kind of keep yourself differentiated from people thinking, oh, I don't have to pay now?
Yeah.
And actually they do, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, we're not targeting consumers. That's how we differentiate, right? Like businesses, they don't think I don't have to pay. It's like businesses are setting these apps up, so we're not selling to consumers.
Okay.
So yeah.
What's your gross margin? And I apologize if it's in here. Some of this is so little I can't read it. But I'm not seeing where the gross margin number is.
Yeah. So like, I like to put this in like, okay, so technically like, our gross margin, if we wanted to, could be like 95%, right? Like we could do like no updates to our apps, like limited maintenance, but that's not what we choose to do. Like we choose to make our apps better and build out new products. So like so we're actually operating on a slight cash flow negative basis because we're reinvesting all of our money
That's fine.
into like new apps. So like our gross margin, like technically it could be 95%. Like right now it's like, I mean, we're cash flow negative. So does that make sense?
No, but gross margin should be before your R&D expenses.
Yeah, sorry. So let's say that, then it's like 95%.
Okay,
Yeah, all of our expenses are R&D expenses,
okay.
Yeah.
pretty much, like vast majority.
And so our model is also difficult to replicate because we have these like integrated algorithms, data, et cetera. It takes a lot of time to build, a lot of data to be effective, but also our partnerships with influencers and other partnerships that we do, they come from personal relationships that we built during our own time building our own e-commerce stores, which again are very, very difficult to replicate.
I'm not sure who asked the question too, but I want to kind of pick on churn just for a second. So you have some anecdotes that like, Mr. whatever his name was is happy,
Beast.
or whoever, Mr. Beast is happy, or whoever else. But, if somewhere between around 40% of your paying customers are churning annually and you're new to market, like do you have any stats or data that lets you know how your customers feel about your product with that kind of churn? Like you measure an NPS or something? Because I look at that churn and I'm like, forget the store closings. I get 60% churn overall kind of, but 40% of people giving you money means like a large chunk are dissatisfied. Are you like trying to understand why they're dissatisfied and leaving kind of just, that set off a little like alarm for me.
Or they tried it once and they had 90 days to do something and then they said, great, that was super, thank you, see you later.
Yeah,
We're
for
going
sure.
to build our own interstitial page. That's all this is if I plug my own offer in.
Yeah. So I mean, we have, I mean, you asked for anecdotes. We have like
I
300.
didn't ask for
yeah.
that. I want,
Oh,
I
sorry,
want
the
data.
opposite.
I want
Sure.
the opposite.
Sure. I mean, we could pull up like Mixpanel if you want, but basically, like generally, what we're trying to understand right now, and Mixpanel is sort of the platform we're trying to do this through, is like trying to understand our onboarding flow, trying to understand where activation drop-offs happen. Like we're not a perfect company. We've been trying to really dive deep into like, you know, what is our onboarding activation rate? How do we improve that? We're reworking on our onboarding right now. I don't think customers are dissatisfied. What we've concluded so far for our churn rate is two things. One is that we've had a lot of difficulty attributing, but two is we have a lower activation rate. And so it's not that customers are dissatisfied with the product, it's that customers aren't using the product. And so that's where we're moving towards now for after sales specifically, is increasing
But in
that.
theory, isn't
Yeah.
a revenue-generating event mean they have to be using the product? So if your revenue-generating churn is 40%, doesn't that have to be from people that use the product?
No, because people still pay if they've installed it and they have the order volume. Because like I said, we auto-track it. You don't have to input it, right? So like the second you install it, your 30-day trial starts, and then after that 30 days, whether or not you're using it, we charge you.
Right, but they can then opt out.
Yeah.
If they uninstall the app, right? You can't opt out of the thing. So like what I'm saying is like the revenue generating churn still means that they're not using the app. Because like you don't have to use the
Yeah,
app,
but you don't
just
want
have
to
to
support
install it.
people not using the app just because they stuck
Yeah.
it in there and you're making.
No, but that's my point is like the revenue generating churn can still be attributed to people not using the app, right? Because
But it
you don't
would
have
be
to use the
reported
app.
differently in your financials.
We've had a hard time attributing that. That's what
Okay,
yeah.
which is fair.
Yeah.
I thought the pricing model is based on orders from the app.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you be charging them if they're not using it and not getting
It's
it?
orders.
Yeah.
It's total store orders.
Yeah.
So it's like a
Oh,
2,000
it's not
total
orders
store
from
Yeah,
your
it's
thing,
total
it's
store
total
orders.
store
yeah.
orders.
Yeah, sorry, it's total store orders.
Is that clear to your customers?
Yeah. It's like on the
sure?
site. That pricing table that I sent has like a literal thing on our website under it that says this pricing is based on your total store order volume.
So
So
other
if they're
your
only
app-
using one,
Yeah.
if they're only using the dark chocolate and not the other 10 flavors of chocolate, you're still going to price this against all 10 flavors of
Yeah.
chocolate.
Yeah, and that's like super clear. It's like been a standard that we do.
Do you
in
think
other
that
stuff.
might be one of the reasons that you're having the churn that you are?
I don't think so. Like our competitors price in a very similar way. It's not like that's like a standard pricing model on Shopify. Like this is how people price, and so like it's not like a dissatisfaction of that. We started sending out like surveys after they uninstall and trying to understand this, and like we haven't fully dissected it yet, but that is where the churn would lie.
Right, but if I were to look at you, you're not a technology disruption. I think you're a business disruption. And your business disruption, business model is actually not disruptive, right? If it's, the answer is, this is the way everyone on Shopify does, right? And yet the way you're trying to go to market is to disrupt these other folks into these SMEs. You know, and by the way, I get that you're still experimenting. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
fine answer.
Yeah.
Right, but I think we're just trying to understand, what are you experimenting on?
Yeah.
Right?
So
Like, wouldn't the true disruption be, we're only gonna charge you for value we create for you, as opposed to, we're gonna just draft off what you're already doing and charge you for what you're already doing, whether you use our
Yeah.
app or not?
You said customers don't like paying a percentage, but if it's a percentage on net new revenue that they
Yeah.
wouldn't have gained otherwise,
yeah.
I mean, as a business owner, I would be very happy to pay more money for that because I know that on balance, I'm making more money than I would without it. So
Yeah, for sure. Like a lot of these things, because they're organic installs, they don't come from sales calls, right? Like that. I think that's what I'm trying to articulate here. They come from like people reading, and these are not like tech people that like are gonna like fully read into. Like they're installing really quickly, and so the reason we choose to use like the traditional model that Shopify store, like Shopify apps do, is because it's really easy to get installs from a Shopify app store. The second thing is our business model disruption is circular, right? Like our business model disruption is that you're going to use more of our apps. And that does plug into our technology saying, hey, we integrate deeply. Like our tracking app integrates with our post-purchase app, which means you can have a widget on your post-purchase page, which means like you're going to drive customers to your tracking page, which have upsells. Like it is a full funnel that you can create
What are
using
you
our apps.
modeling? I mean, you guys are still super early, which is cool. What are you modeling the percentage of getting this full circle going, right? Not everyone's going to go there. Not everybody's maybe going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You've got to have a business model for when you go raise money, right? What would you present to the investor
Yeah.
that basically says, so 100% would be 7,000 customers. We're modeling it at 10% are going to do 3 apps, and
Yeah.
X is going to do 5 apps.
Yeah.
Have you begun to try to figure that out?
No. Yeah, like we are 100% still modeling,
Yeah,
experimenting
no, that's
all
cool.
of our
That's
pricing.
all we
Like,
need to hear. I mean, that's
yeah,
fine.
yeah. The five new apps, or the 4 other apps that we're going to test new pricing strategies, and that's one of the whole
Do
points
you
of.
track churn and take rate and everything by your 3 channels? Because I would guess, or posit, or as a former Amazon GM, I would figure that the larger, more sophisticated the customer, the less likely they are to take this and this model. And the more Mr. Beastie the customer, that's like a YouTube's like, hey, I want to just add a little more revenue to my live stream. The more turnkey, easy, simple, less questions I ask. So that's what I would posit, but I'm curious as if you have any data on your take rate, churn, acquisition cost, any metric, you know, in your 3 different channels.
For sure, yeah. I can't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, but I guess I could say, like, for the larger D2C brands, these ones have, like, much lower churn and much higher activation. Because if you think about it, like, these drop shippers or SMBs are usually, like, 1 or 2 person teams, where the founder is extremely busy, probably doesn't have the time to, like, go in depth and set everything up in detail. Whereas with these larger D2C brands, they probably have an employee at the company which is just in charge of setting up apps. So they're really able to, I guess, spend more time and optimize the app for their store. And that's why the churn for these larger D2C brands is much lower. We see like average subscription lengths of like much higher than these 2 groups.
Like some of our D2C brands have been around for the time we've been around, right?
How much optimization is required though? Because I thought the whole point was 5 minutes and it's up and running and they're not really doing much on the back end.
Like it's not the optimization of like them like setting up apps, so it's the optimization of them continuing their store, right? Like the dropshippers and SMBs, they churn because their store churns from Shopify as
And,
well.
like, it's also
Right.
like, you know, if you're a DTC brand, like you have like you can A/B test a lot, right? Like, you can see what works better. Like it's hard to know necessarily beforehand. Like a lot of our customers have good ideas, and like sometimes they're right, but sometimes they're not, and that's why we have A/B testing, which large D2C brands are increasingly using.
And with, yeah, as Drew mentioned, the lower stores, like if the lifetime of a drop shipping store is only 2 months, let's say, that's going to like reflect negatively on our churn because their store is going to shut down after 2 months, right? So like with these drop shippers, they really scale up quick, but then the store kind of dies off quick as well. So that's reflected in our churn, and it shows negatively there. They still might be our customer, and they might come back with a new store, right? They might be making new stores, maybe like 3 or 4 new stores a year, and they might come back to us. But in that like net churn statistic, it ends up looking bad since we can't really attribute which store is that individual store.
Can it looks like we just have a minute left. Can
Yeah.
I ask a?
Seconds.
Yeah. So you guys are hackers?
Yeah, just go to the team side. Get a lot more. Yeah, so,
Why didn't you do a security play?
sorry?
Why didn't you build a security company?
We have e-commerce background,
Yeah.
so Armand.
Before
But you're good hackers. Okay.
before this company, like I was like the e-commerce merchant guy. I had my own
Gotcha.
store, and I was able to like scale that up to like $2 million in revenue. But the store ended up dying off and was somewhat unprofitable at the end. So it kind of arose from my own pain points and
Gotcha.
experience.
Yeah, I ran product and sales at an e-commerce software startup. Varun
Okay.
and Landon were building their own e-commerce apps.
Yeah.
And then we all have tech backgrounds,
Gotcha.
so it like really made sense for us to do this.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, that's what we got. That's your
that's
time.
set up.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Team.
Good job, guys.
Thanks,
As
guys.
always, our finalist judges are a little bit aggressive. to keep you on
Well,
your
as I said,
toes.
you got us up on a Saturday morning.
Exactly. Exactly. So, good work, gentlemen.
Thank you.
We'll
Thanks,
have
guys.
a couple of minutes break here. Claw Industries is coming up next.
Thank you.
open.
We're easy.
Yeah, you might make it through slide 2.
Yeah. All right. So hi, my name is Jacob Kumpon from Claw Industries, and this is Veronica Snell, and we are fundamentally changing the recycling industry. So there's a secret in recycling, and it's that it doesn't work. For the past 40 years, waste companies have been landfilling all the glass that we recycle. That's right, the wine bottles that you tossed in the recycling bin never made it to new bottles, just down the street to your landfill. Now, this isn't because the waste companies are evil. In fact, this is costing them over $200,000 each year at every single one of their facilities. It's because the glass is mixed with a bunch of paper, plastic, and metal, making it unusable for new bottles or anything else. In the US, we landfill 8.3 million tons of this glass every single year. That's almost all the glass that we produce. At Claw Industries, our mission is to eliminate this waste glass. We are the first company to connect the recycling and concrete industry, to lead the deployment of sustainable materials in the next wave of new infrastructure. So concrete, like you'd see in a sidewalk, is made of gravel, sand, cement, and water. The cement and water react. That's the glue that holds the concrete together. Now, cement is by far the most expensive material in concrete, makes up 75% of the material cost. In addition to this, for every 1 ton of cement produced, 1 ton of CO2 is released into the atmosphere, making it one of the most pollutive materials on the planet. At Claw Industries, we are paid by recycling facilities to take this waste glass. We then put it through our patent-pending process and create Pantheon. And Pantheon is a partial replacement for cement and concrete. For recyclers, we offer a lower-cost alternative than the landfill, and we ensure that the glass is actually recycled. After putting it through our process, Pantheon makes concrete stronger, lower cost, and lowers the carbon impact.
Quick question. I was just going to ask what the temperature properties are, because I'm from Phoenix, so we're all looking at how do we stop making the concrete give off heat at night. So does by mixing it with the glass actually give it some properties that would reduce the heat absorption, or?
Yes, that's called heat of hydration, and since we're directly replacing cement, we slow down heat of hydration.
Okay.
So this is great for summertime applications.
Okay.
Good answer. You said partial replacement.
Yes.
So I'm assuming there's some kind of cost-benefit curve with regard to like the actual percent of Pantheon that's in there. So what is that?
Yep. Typically, it's 20 to 30% of your cement content. That'll give you the highest strength. The other thing is you don't want to slow the concrete down too much.
Right.
So that's the optimum amount.
Okay.
Now, the core value proposition of Pantheon is that it increases the compressive strength of concrete by 11%. In addition to this, we beat the price of competitive materials by 25%. That is a huge decrease for the high-volume concrete industry. Now, so far, we have validated this in over 20 concrete projects, and I wanted to talk about a few of these. This was a residential sidewalk we completed with Tim Rufo from Barney & Dickinson in Binghamton, New York. A customer called Tim asking for a high-performance sidewalk, and Tim used Pantheon to increase the compressive strength of the concrete, and this became the first commercial application of Pantheon in the field. Now, another project was with Jamie Caddy from Upstone Materials and Clarkson University. Now, Clarkson was expanding their biking infrastructure with a low-embodied carbon bike path. And Jamie used Pantheon to align with Clarkson's sustainability goals and submit a competitive bid.
How did you get the relationship with these guys?
Yep. So Tim Rufo from Barney & Dickinson, we actually cold called Tim right when we started. That's where we learned about some of the issues they have with sourcing raw materials for concrete. And Jamie, we went through a trade organization that Tim introduced us to. Now, this traction has allowed us to raise over $600,000 in non-dilutive funding, including an SBIR with the EPA. Using this money, we purchased a production facility in Binghamton and outfitted it with our process. Last September, we received the first delivery of waste glass from Shalene Taylor at Southern Tier Recyclers, and she paid us $35 per ton to take her waste glass.
And how long did it take you to convince her to do that?
That basically, after we took samples, about a year. It didn't take very long as soon as we had you can see we set up a dump bin.
Yeah.
So on the recycling side, we're basically competing with the landfill. It's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
So we're cheaper.
It's a good
Does this
competitor.
just slide right into their existing workflow?
Yes, they are, right now, what recyclers do is they drive it to the landfill.
Yeah,
So-
recyclers I get. I meant more the cement
Yes.
companies.
So that's something that we're going to get into very soon. Right now, we have a 25-ton per month letter of intent with Tim Rufo from Barney and Dickinson starting this April for 25 tons of Pantheon. Now, Tim decided to make the switch because he can not only increase the strength of his concrete, but he can also save money on his raw materials.
And did he do that analysis, or did you do that analysis?
The increasing the strength, like can you validate that claim? How's that, how the 11% stronger, where's the data that proves that?
Yep, so this is a test that we've done with Tim Rufo, Barney and Dickinson. We've also validated this in the lab with Clarkson University, how this measures actually just crushing concrete cylinders. So this is actually the big reason why Tim decided to make the switch, because he has a hard time sourcing his other materials, and we outperform them.
And did he have to do that test himself? You did it as part of your sales go-to-market, but then did he have to validate that on his own?
Yes, usually concrete industry mix directors like Tim are very hands-on. They want to see it work in their mixes. So that's something that we help them do.
Okay.
So he did his own crush test.
Yep, did his own crush test. That way he could see it work.
Got it, thanks.
Yep.
How about the cold weather? Is there anything where you're better or worse under cold temps? Because obviously half of U.S. is frozen tundra. some of
Yes,
the year.
so we're starting in New York. That test with Jamie Caddy, that was very far upstate New York, almost in Canada, and no noticeable differences.
Okay.
So performed fine. Now, you may be asking why somebody like Tim would take a new material. Haven't they been making concrete the same way forever? Well, in the 1940s, the concrete industry began using fly ash from coal power plants and slag from steel foundries to replace cement in concrete. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, these industries are rapidly dying in the U.S., leading to shortages and price increases of 15% each year. That's basically destroying the bottom line of these concrete plants. Just to put this into perspective, this is fly ash and slag suppliers in the Northeast, and as you can see, there's only one in New York. Compare that to the 57 recycling facilities that are paying high landfill tipping fees on their glass.
Are these family businesses? Is there a generational change happening now or sometime that may potentially accelerate their adoption just because they're more climate aware versus we've been in this business for 100 years and
Or do you have to sell every Tim
Yeah,
at a time? And so
Right.
it's if you're doing a family business, is a long, expensive sales cycle, or is there some huge concrete company out there that you sell and then everything
and then there are
takes off?
50
Yeah.
different groups?
Yes, so we are basically, our target market is the smaller mom and pop shops. The reason for that is that the cost benefit is much greater
What
to
is
them.
small in this business?
Small is, we'll get to that, but it's 3,000 tons of cement replacements per
And
year.
so what is the revenue size of those businesses?
$6 million.
Okay.
That's to you, or that's how much they sell?
That's how much they sell.
Right.
That's their revenue
But
size.
that's sort of the size, average size, okay.
Bigger companies basically have a longer sales time from what
Sure.
we've seen. So that's why we're starting with the smaller ones.
Yeah.
But where you can save them, then bottom line, like 15%, what's their pre-tax? Because that percent of their pre-tax income as a 6 million concrete company may actually be quite large.
What-
My assumption is these cement businesses are like break even, 2 to 3% net
Yeah.
income.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah, basically we're saving them, in terms of dollar figures, what it's coming out to is roughly we're saving them about $200,000 each year.
Yeah.
Now,
Which is significant to them.
yes, especially, basically like this is a material they're using in all of the trucks that are going out.
Right. So 3-4%.
Yeah.
Additional. Yeah.
Now, the total addressable market for this globally is about $12 billion. Now, we're starting here in the U.S., service addressable market is $1.3 billion, and our service obtainable market in New York, where we're starting, is $26 million. Now, this is actually like the target customer section. So,
And this may be answering it, but is the ROI from you, or actually the way you're making money, coming from both sides of this equation? So you're getting an opportunity to make money on both sides?
that's correct. We are paid to take waste glass, big part of our
Paid to take
revenue
waste
model
glass,
at this
okay.
stage. So, we operate a high-volume business, so we service a small logistical area. So on the recycling side, we work with operations directors at recycling facilities in New York that process about 2,000 tons of waste glass per year. Those are smaller facilities like Shalene Taylor, Southern Tier Recyclers, and they're hit the hardest by high landfill tipping fees, which we can save them money on.
So you said $200,000 a year is typically what they're paying. So the landfills are charging $100 a ton for tipping?
$200,000 is on the recycler side.
Yeah,
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 that's-
and
it's-
Or on the concrete side, I'm sorry.
Right, so that's the interesting thing. You're making money on that side and this side?
That's correct. We are dual revenue
Okay.
stream.
I thought you said the 200,000 was from recyclers landfilling their waste glass.
Yes, so yeah, okay, I know, yeah.
So that would suggest that if they're doing 2,000 tons a year, the landfills are charging them $100 a ton to tip, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're only charging 35.
Yeah, so this is extremely, like, basically that $200,000 is a broader average across the Northeast.
Okay.
Now, where we are locally in Binghamton, our landfill tipping fee is about $55. We're a very low area, so we're, like, basically, we have to adjust that rate for the recycling facility that we're trying to switch over.
So it's going to be dynamic.
Yes, exactly, very dynamic.
I mean, there's technologies now on the recycling side to try and sort out the good from the bad on the plastic and glass. Well, there are, but for exactly the reason, though, that it's a problem, right, is that, it's got paper around it, or it's brown color versus whatever, So is there an opportunity for you to partner with some of the technologies that are trying to actually help the process of recycling so they actually know, how to get to that waste glass even faster? That's what these other folks are going to do. They're going to say, using cameras and this and that and all this shit. Basically, we can more quickly, right, pull out the stuff that's bad, right, versus assuming this is all junk and we've got to take it all, right? I mean, it would seem to me that if you were getting a faster grab of the bad stuff, right, you could accelerate your acquisition to customers and to revenue.
Yes, I will say, like, basically our process is built to deal with these smaller facilities that have very high contamination levels and also don't have a lot of money to invest in a lot of equipment right away.
Okay, so for the target market right now, it's all or nothing.
Yes, that's what, like, these facilities typically have 20 to 40% contamination levels. That's
But it
what-
would seem to me, and I totally get where you're starting, but it would seem to me that you can go up market pretty fast once you've got some kind of, large reference base to begin to go to the larger folks, because the larger folks have the same problem, right?
That's exactly the case. You'll
Right.
see, and that's part of what we're doing in New York.
Right, okay.
But on the concrete side, we work with mixed directors at ready-mix concrete plants in New York that produce use about 3,000 tons of cement replacements each year, like Tim Rufo. And Tim is the first to be cut off when those flash and slag shortages occur. Now, I want to make it clear where Pantheon sits in the concrete value chain. We sell Pantheon as a raw material to mixed directors like Tim. Now, Tim combines all these ingredients and sells concrete to different projects like a concrete pad or a garage floor.
What's the yield of your glass to Pantheon?
The yield?
Yeah.
So a typical average is about waste glass is 80% glass. So for every ton that we take in, 80% is usable material. So it'd be 1,600 pounds per ton.
Okay.
Now, our competitive advantage is our patent-pending process to remove contamination from waste glass. Specifically, we pull out all that paper, plastic, and metal. And as I mentioned, we're regularly going up to 20 to 40% contamination levels. Those are the highest that we've seen in New York as well as in the Northeast. Now, why is this competitive advantage important? Well, our competitors who use clean glass to make a glass cement replacement include Urban Mining Northeast and Tricentrics. Now, our ability to use waste glass provides us with two advantages. One, we receive payment for our raw material, where competitors have to purchase the raw material. Second, we're able to leverage an 8.3 million ton per year stable supply chain to keep pace with mixed directors' intense material demand. Now, to protect this advantage, we filed a non-provisional patent back in 2021. That patent is specifically on the contamination removal process, actually reducing the size of the material to make it reactive. That is a process that we are keeping as a trade secret. Now, I wanted to touch on the sustainability aspects of what we're doing. As I mentioned, for every ton of cement produced, 1 ton of CO2 is released into the atmosphere. Cement production alone accounts for 8% of global CO2 emissions. That's 4 times higher than the entire aviation industry. So you've probably heard of battery-powered planes or high-efficiency jet fuels, but nobody ever talks about how the runway is 4 times worse for the environment than the plane itself. Now, Pantheon replaces the high-carbon cement in the concrete mix, and that caught the attention of the New York State Pollution Prevention Institute. Last summer, they completed a case study showing Pantheon reduces the embodied carbon of concrete by 60 kilograms per cubic yard, since we only take about 3% of the emissions compared to cement. Now, what do these magic environmental numbers actually mean? Well, it means in all of our projects so far, we've prevented 3,200 kilograms of CO2. Scaling across the US, we can prevent 8.1 million tons of CO2 every single year. And by 2050, we can prevent 10.8 gigatons of carbon.
Are you going to go into what the patent is actually on? That's your process for for being able to sort out the glass, the contamination. So that contamination removal process, which is the patent pending, are we going to go into that a little bit?
Not any further details on that, no.
Can you just sort of summarize what you're doing that others are not to do that?
Yes, basically, the specialty here is that we have a way to deal with the labels, paper, and the plastic that's in the waste stream. That's been the hardest thing to sort out of waste glass.
And is this going through some sort of, flyby analysis, or how is it being picked out?
Yes, so I know it may seem like a black box, but our patent attorneys have advised us to, since
Okay.
this is a public forum,
Yeah,
that would
it's on
constitute
YouTube,
public
yeah.
disclosure.
And so, patent, cool. How did you decide that the biggest opportunity was turning this into concrete versus reselling this glass with all the contaminants removed some other channel, right? Like, why, you could have just stopped with that as a business in theory and made that a big business. Why be the ones that go all the way in? Why not sell your glass to all the people that want glass?
Because there's not many people who want glass. Big problem with making new bottles is that everything has to be color sorted, to the extent of if you have 5 pounds of blue glass in a tractor trailer full of green glass, that load will be rejected. It's extremely tight quality control. And our margins on the concrete industry are actually higher, since we are replacing a reactive ingredient.
And I guess I have an orthogonal question. If this truly works the way it's, and the urgency globally around, hitting greenhouse gas emission goals, would you think of licensing this to, say, people in Europe? Because it seems like, again, they're a little bit ahead of us on the how do we hit our goals.
That is exactly part of our scale-up model, which we will
Okay.
get to soon.
Okay.
Before we go on, I'm assuming you said you filed a patent, so it's not granted yet.
It is not granted, it's still non-provisional
How
status.
broad are the claims, and have any of them been rejected?
No, none have been rejected at this point.
Okay, so are the claims broad enough to cover like tweaks in the process?
Yes.
Okay. What's the environmental impact of actually taking the raw input and creating Pantheon? 'Cause you talk about the environmental benefits on the cement side, which is great, but there's probably
The
some
conversion
cost
process,
on.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So total, our process about 140 kilowatt hours. Compare that to cement, like I said, it's only 3% of the emissions. Big thing is that we don't have any chemicals in our process. I can't say that. So there's no environmental concerns there. Now, this is a per unit breakdown of what we're doing. So we receive waste glass for $35 per ton. That is a revenue to us. We process it at our facility in Binghamton with a cost of goods sold of $81 per ton. We add an additional $29 for logistics and then sell Pantheon for $140. This leaves us with a profit of $65.
So, and maybe I'm confused here. You just said we acquire waste glass, but what I thought I heard before was, especially these are smaller recyclers, you're acquiring everything and you're sorting out the waste glass. No.
Nope. So when recycling goes to a recycling facility,
Right.
they pull out the paper, they pull out the plastics, they pull out the cardboard, and glass is kind of this like catch-all bin
Yeah.
that right now they don't have anything to do with it, so they send it to the landfill. So they're getting all the regular recyclables out. What we are taking is basically, instead of taking the glass stream to the landfill, they take it to us. So like we're not
What
going.
if the waste glass is contaminated coming to you? Right? Because the other answer you gave me is, hey, these are small recyclers. They don't really have the high-tech technology today to sort of do this perfect. But it sort of sounds like they are doing something to clean and divide up the recyclable material such that you're getting clean waste glass.
So waste glass is a term for all the glass that the recycling facility
Understood.
gets. So they're basically processing the other materials out. Now the contamination level of the waste glass that
Right.
we get is about 20 to 40%.
Okay.
So like they get all their cardboard out already.
Yeah, because, I mean, we all know this isn't being handled well. If it was.
Exactly.
We'd be, okay. So 20 to 40% is the contamination of the quote-unquote clean waste glass that you're getting.
Yes.
Okay.
That's a way to think about it. Now, our assumption for this business model is that recyclers will change their logistics pattern to drop off waste glass to us, working on validating that with Shalene from her delivery. Our operating assumption is that our cost of goods sold is $81 per ton. That's what we're proving by scaling in Binghamton. And on the concrete side, our assumption is that mixed directors will switch their silo storage infrastructure to a new material. This is really our key assumption, since this takes about 2 weeks of time and costs about $3,000. Now, these are financials for the next 3 years, and as you can see, the dual revenue stream of our business model provides us high revenue in the early years. However, we are a capital-intensive business. We plan to reinvest this money back into the company to continue to grow. Now, a question that we got earlier is a question we get.
How much money do you need to get to profitability? I mean, just at a high level, how far away are you from this? Or where, what do you got to get to on the revenue side to get you to profitability, given how much more you need to invest?
Yep. So the Binghamton facility is phase one of our scaling process. That facility will be profitable at 2,000 tons per year. Okay. That facility is actually already funded.
Gotcha.
So that's when we will hit profitability. Now, a common concern with Colorado Industries is how do we actually scale this, especially as recycling facilities catch on to this and they stop paying us to take waste glass as it becomes a commodity that's more competitive. Now, phase one is our facility in Binghamton that will do 2,000 tons of Pantheon per year. And as I mentioned, this facility is already funded. This will prove our initial business model. From there, we will scale this technology to Philadelphia, New York City, and Boston. We will locate next to recyclers to cut down on logistics costs, and these facilities will do about 25,000 tons per year. This will validate that mixed directors in other regions will uptake a new material into the concrete industry.
It would feel like this is a business, given the size of the target, that's very referenceable, i.e., whether it's a family business or not, these are folks that relate to each other, that they're really not competing per se with each other. And so therefore, if you do get your initial beachhead of customers, that it should shorten the sales cycle as it relates to the referrals that you're getting overall.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's something that we've seen both on the concrete and the recycling side. And that is why phase 3 in 2025 is where we'll start licensing this technology directly to recyclers. That way we can expand rapidly across the U.S., minimizing our capital expenses and allowing us basically to move our revenue model off of waste glass payments and onto recurring licensing payments, which are much more stable. Now, to bring Pantheon to market, we've completed those 20 concrete projects as well as purchased our production facility in Binghamton. Now, we are sending out the first truck of Pantheon to Tim, as I mentioned. In December of 2022, we'll be scaling up to a larger facility in New York City. In May of 2024, we'll penetrate 45% of our service obtainable market by starting operations in Boston. Now, how did this all start? Well, back in 2019, I was touring our local recycling facility with my co-founder, Jack, and we saw all the glass that we were placing in the recycling bin was just being sorted out and sent right to the landfill. Now, this problem stuck with me since I come from a rural town not too far from our landfill. And landfill encroachment is a real problem in my hometown as well as many other rural communities across the U.S. Now, Jack is our CEO, leading the deployment of Pantheon into the market from his time at BAE Systems and LC Drives. Last December, Jack quit BAE Systems to come on to Claw Industries full-time. I'm our COO, leading our process development from my time at C&P Advanced Mechanical Solutions, working on Tesla and Amazon projects. We recently brought Veronica on for her experience at the Alzheimer's Association as our Chief Grant Officer, and Nicholas Walling we brought on last summer as our Chief Automation Officer to help us scale this process from his time at AWS and Microsoft Azure. Now, there's a lot of talk in entrepreneurship about passion and grit on your team, but what does that actually mean? At Claw Industries, it means that Jack is back in Binghamton doing everything he can to fill that truck for Tim. It means that we spent all of our funding, every last penny we had, to purchase a production facility to prove our business model. It means that I have $122 in my personal bank account, and it is the most comfortable I have ever been. And at this point, I'll pass it to Veronica.
What we have built fundamentally changes recycling. It is extremely difficult to build what we have built, and it would not have been possible without the passion of our team members, our advisory board of concrete experts, our business strategists, and our grant funders. Our experience in creating sustainable concrete, scaling businesses, and passing regulatory hurdles positions us to continue our revolution in concrete and recycling industries. So we are seeking a $1.1 million investment in the form of a SAFE agreement. And with this investment, we will be able to outfit a production facility in New York City. Specifically, we are looking at equipment that traditional lenders are not willing to finance. And by creating this second production facility, it will validate our scalability process and enable us to license our technology in 2025.
Now, within 12 years, Claw Industries will be acquired by one of the large cement companies such as Cemex or Lehigh Hanson. Notable sales of cement replacement companies include the sale of Boreal Materials last year for $755 million. And cement replacement companies are typically acquired at 7 to 10 times EBITDA, placing us in a strong position as fly ash and slag dry up across the U.S.
What keeps you up at night? What's the most level of paranoia you've got at being able to, other than every day, at being able to actually meet these goals?
Scaling. The first three facilities. New York City, Philadelphia, and Boston are the highest risk to Claw Industries, since basically we have to put a lot of money in all at once.
Is there any risk to the mixer getting the amount of your material wrong in the mix and then something not working with the concrete?
Yes. Like fundamentally, materials that act as cement replacements, you can mess up. I will say that they are regularly using fly ash and slag already. It's already in their mixes. All of our testing is as a drop-in. We don't actually change the mix. We just change the material.
Okay.
You said they have to change their storage.
Yep.
For this. Can you talk about that a little bit more?
Yep. So that takes about, as I said, 2 weeks of time and $3,000 to switch that silo to a new material. Now the key and why we're targeting the smaller concrete plants is those silos are currently empty because they can't get fly ash and slag anymore. They're the first to be cut off. So we're basically saying, hey, take your empty silo, put this new material that's cheaper and better in it.
Okay. So they're not actually having to do any kind of like CapEx replacement. It's literally just get the material out, put new material in.
Exactly, and that goes along with the mixes. They're not optimizing the mixes at all. They're just using it straight as a drop-in, and we're able to outperform those other materials.
Is there any legal risk to you if the concrete doesn't hold up to your claim of being 11% stronger or working better in hot environments or any of the other stuff? Like, are you indemnifying the mixers or the concrete producers?
No, since we don't actually create the concrete, they are actually liable for the actual mixing part, and that's one of the reasons why they are so keen to actually trying out the material themselves and getting hands-on with it.
Right.
So we have a not very high, but we have a higher customer acquisition cost. However, we work with a limited group of customers that are very high volume.
I guess I have a safety question. So
Yep.
because you're creating a fine powder made of glass, if that's inhaled, that would basically shred somebody's lungs? No?
No. So basically, we are an inert material.
Okay.
So basically, the OSHA says that you don't even have to have a mask on to breathe that in.
Wow.
It's actually very safe. Now, part of this, going along with safety, I wanted to jump to a backup slide. We have ASTM approval on this material. The concrete industry has an existing standard for glass cement replacements. We received this back in 2020. So that means that Pantheon today can be used in any commercial application, from your house foundation all the way up to the Freedom Tower in New York City, if the concrete mix director wishes to. Now, how would the new venture competition help Claw Industries? Well, it would allow us to purchase a roll-off trailer to service Tyson Robb at Delaware County. Now, Delaware County is a smaller recycling facility.
I do see you, Veronica, driving the truck.
Yes, lead truck driver Veronica.
Lead truck, right.
Yes, but so Delaware County doesn't actually have the logistics infrastructure to send waste glass anywhere but their landfill. So to keep waste glass out of Delaware County's landfill, we will pick this up. Now, Clarkson University and the University of Arkansas have already thrown in for a truck to pull this trailer, and I am currently enrolled in CDL classes. So, so I'm the truck driver.
You're next, though. So.
Yep.
Do you have any investment on the 1.1 so far?
Not right now. We're basically just starting to look for that. We really have been leaning heavily into the non-dilutive funding and want to lean into that as much as possible. That's why we brought Veronica on. So I will say the University of Oregon will get a nice painted side of that trailer if we are able to get it.
Just want Nathan's picture on it.
Yep. And that's why we're up here in jeans, steel toes, and sweatshirts. Because if we're actually going to keep waste glass out of our landfills, we're going to have to get down and get our hands dirty.
Okay, so
Thank
this
you.
is where you give us the sweatshirts?
Yes, we don't have.
Bribing the judges does work, no.
I'm very focused.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
So are you out of?
is Peko Produce. Welcome, Ariel. You got it. You know the rules, the whole process. I'll give you warnings. Take it away.
Sure. For disclaimer, it's usually two of us. I actually did this pitch for the first time alone yesterday, so this will be my second time doing it. But she is stuck on the other side of the border, but she sends her regards. Well, because of that, I'm just kind of going to go run with it. We don't really have like a formal pitch, but just like alone. But I'd love this to be kind of like a conversation. So stop me anytime if you have any questions.
No worries.
That is what I like to hear. Well, I'd like to introduce Peko Produce. What we do is we want to rescue food and distribute it for affordable prices. But how did this kind of start? Basically, Sang and I, who is my co-founder, we went down to our local produce terminal, and we found that thousands of pounds of fresh produce was being thrown out each day. And like, there's no shortage of this. And in fact, when we asked them, they actually had to pay to discard perfectly edible food. This was due to surplus or just because they looked a little like funny looking. So we looked into it further, and it turns out $3.1 billion worth of food is actually thrown out each year in Canada alone. And that's all due to the stuff I mentioned before, which is kind of like disgusting if you ask me. So we knew we had to do something to fix it. But this is all happening while we're seeing the highest costs in food all around. And I'm sure that you guys are also facing this, but even this year alone, like inflation for food has gone up 10%. So a lot of people aren't able to afford the same things they were able to before. And again, like it all kind of feeds back to the earth, right? 8 to 10% of all greenhouse gas emissions actually come from food waste, just like that. So our mission is to reduce food waste and empower access to affordable and healthy food. What do we do and how do we do it? We take the imperfect or the surplus harvest from farmers and wholesalers and we deliver it straight to consumers. We sell it for up to 40% off grocery prices so people can afford it, and it's very, very convenient.
This is town by town, city by city. I mean, given what you just said, it seems that this is very local focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So right now we're starting with Vancouver, but kind of like imagine the whole area of like down like the British Columbia.
Right.
So we do Vancouver, Surrey, Richmond,
Yeah.
and all of like the farming towns around there as
Right.
well.
Do you have to go source from each farm individually and then pick up from each farm individually, or is there some central area where farms are delivering and then they're dumping their excess produce?
Yeah, for sure. And I'll get right into that, actually. I think it's right here. So it all kind of feeds into like a warehouse. Farmers already go to like these like warehouses to drop off all of their like produce. And how it works is basically, ignore this and I'll walk you through like a farmer's perspective. So haha, this is me harvesting my food. I get like all these like big boxes and then I deliver it to wholesalers. Wholesalers are organizing all of these farmers. So everyone has different crops. And because of that, they can give it to like the end consumers. So these wholesalers sell to grocery stores. So now they can get all of like the different kinds of vegetables. And then of course, grocery stores get to end consumers. So what we do is we go right in between the farmers and the wholesalers and also like just work with these two primarily. So with wholesalers, we've actually just like established a partnership with one of the biggest people or biggest players in Vancouver. And we're able to actually work outside of their warehouse. So we use like their fully like cold warehouse produce, you know the drill, and we're able to take all of like the stuff there that they have surplus, and we're also able to source stuff from farms and get that delivered to
So who's the economic buyer in this whole thing?
Could you clarify economic buyer?
Who's paying for this service?
So
The
like
farmers or the grocery stores? You know, where are you getting money?
For sure, and that's the end consumers. So we skip the grocery stores entirely, and then we deliver it to the
Okay,
doors.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you buy the damaged product from the wholesaler, or do you get it for free because they're going to throw it in the waste bin anyway?
Yeah. So I feel like farmers should be paid for a lot of their harvests. And right now, that's also a really big problem. It's like, now that you have to throw this out, like, no one is winning at all. So I make sure to pay the farmers, but I'm getting it 80% off wholesale prices. So, like, a good example is, like, each lemon that I'm able to buy is, like, less than a cent versus, like, people are paying, like, $1.25 for that in stores.
So you've got two business models here, right? I mean, in my mind, you've got the eliminate the wholesaler, whether it's pretty vegetables or not pretty vegetables on a subscription service. And then you've got we're going to take the waste food, the unpretty stuff as well. So if the farmer wants to give you all their asparagus to eliminate the wholesaler, are you going to say, no, we're only taking the ugly asparagus?
In that model, then we become a wholesaler ourselves. So we
Well,
want
not
to.
really, right? I mean, you are eliminating the second source on this, right? They may just decide, we're going to give you all of our asparagus on a there's a company here called Milk Run, and it's what she's doing. I mean, she made the relationships with the farmers, and she delivers it directly to her customers, to the consumer. Totally eliminated. But it's not just the unpretty stuff, it's also the pretty stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's what kind of like grocery kits do as well. They eliminate that. Actually, they do work with wholesalers just because like they're able to get like a lot of like variety.
Right, but my question is, are you only doing the unpretty stuff?
I'm focusing on the imperfect stuff just
Gotcha.
because that's what's like kind of
Being
like,
wasted.
being wasted. And I think this company was really like formed to like find the inefficiencies in the food supply chain and like abuse
This
it,
is one piece
exploit
of
it.
it.
Exactly.
But if either a customer or the farmer says, you know, can I just give you all my asparagus? Or can I just buy from you all the asparagus that you can get from the local farmer? So I'm not getting the unpretty stuff from you and still going to the grocery store. And what would you say?
I would actually say no, just because that's not really what I focus on. And it's also like the imperfect stuff is like what makes it cheap and affordable.
Gotcha.
And if I take like the perfect stuff, it's probably going to be
More
at a
expensive,
premium,
yeah.
exactly what like the wholesalers focus on.
Yep.
And I don't think I can deliver that premium in bulk. And it also kind of goes against the mission of providing like affordable food.
Gotcha.
So why do you need a relationship with the farmer? Because in theory, aren't you waiting till the wholesaler tells the farmer that that produce is something they're not going to take anyway? So you already know the value of it once the wholesaler passes on it, because you're not determining what asparagus is pretty, and ugly, to Diane's point. So you're waiting for the wholesaler, I'm assuming, to make that decision, and that's why you're doing your stuff outside the wholesaler's location. And you already know that produce is gonna be waste unless you pay the farmer for it. So we'll say for now, out of the generousness of your heart or hurting your margins, you're paying for it. But why do you need a relationship with the farmer in this scenario?
I think farming and wholesalers are very, very relationship driven. Even if they could get like more money from a different place, if they've been with you for like 10 years, like it's like very like set in stone. And I know that like it's hard to kind of like imagine that, especially when it's like so sharky in business. But like farms like really care about their clients. So that's why we make sure to develop like relationships and very, very close relationships with everyone. But in terms of like the wholesalers and the farms, like what if wholesalers buy imperfect produce? That's why we like work with them. And also their clientele is all like the grocery store stuff, and that's how they make their money. So it's kind of like a whole new like model in the terms like we're the only people looking for imperfect stuff or surplus.
You've got the whole farmers markets in this. I mean, here in Portland, we've got one of the most recognized in the U.S. It's huge. So I go and buy things. There's two angles to it.
Yep.
It's not cheaper than the grocery store, right?
Yep.
But it's also not all perfect
Yeah.
produce.
Yeah. I think farmers markets are a great way to support farms. Love that for you. But I'm actually going to talk about like the misconception of imperfect produce.
Okay.
So when I first found out about this problem, I kind of called cap on it, and I was like, yeah, there's no way this is real. There's actually people doing this in the States with imperfect. And I looked into it, and it is all made up. So like an imperfect tomato gets turned into like canned tomatoes, right? Turns into sauce. Imperfect apples get turned into juice. But what we actually work with, and we call it imperfect for marketing, it's the supply and demand of it all. Like, imagine you're a farmer and you have like 20,000 apples, but you only have 10,000 buyers on the other side. What are you going to do with these 10,000 apples? These wholesalers don't want it because they know exactly like how many apples they need and how many customers they have on the other side. But then you have all these 10,000 apples and they're going to go bad soon. So we come in and we're like, hey, like it can either go to the ground or you can either get it discarded or you can sell it to us for very, very cheap and we will take it all off of your hands.
Right, but they're not imperfect. It's just excess inventory.
Exactly. So there's an argument there being like, what if there's no excess? And we haven't seen that like ever. And I think like a lot of like imperfect and like even the competitors in the States who are like, I don't know, 100 times bigger than us, they're working with the same produce and they've never seen like a lack of excess. It's just kind of like a disgusting fact of like farming. Yeah.
So maybe I'm missing something, but you just said the wholesalers would sell it to you, any of their excess, but you're talking about going direct to the farmers.
Yeah.
So why not just go to the wholesalers and have them pay you to take their excess?
We do
And
that too.
Okay, so then why
So
spend
there are
the
multiple business models in here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Multiple suppliers, and we are kind of like the people who source all of it and like rescue all of it.
Right.
Yeah.
But if the
So
wholesalers already have the relationships with the farmers, aren't you just kind of recreating that and creating extra work for yourself in order to get the same produce out of the waste stream?
I think we just work with like different product. Like wholesalers aren't trying to get the imperfect stuff, if that makes sense. I guess like if we're working out of a wholesaler, it's like we're still our own business. We don't work like too much. We just kind of have the facility.
Okay.
If that
But the interesting, I mean, it's becoming clearer to me, but
Mm-hmm.
the interesting initial premise for Peko was imperfect produce,
Mm-hmm.
right? The reality is the business that Peko is in is eliminating waste, food waste from the dump,
Yeah.
right? So it isn't, so imperfect produce is one obvious thing, but the issue of excess inventory,
Yeah.
right, which for certain things like apples as an example, or grapes, or, whatever, cherries, is as much a part of the business proposition here as imperfect.
Exactly. And it's like we call the surplus imperfect because it's stuff.
Surplus equals imperfect.
Yeah.
Okay, that clarifies.
Awesome. Cool. Keep going. Yeah, and then this is what I was talking about, partnerships. In terms of like last mile delivery, we've partnered with also some like couriers in the area. These are actually solar powered tricycles. This guy's putting in the work, delivering all this stuff, and they just kind of pick it up from our warehouse and deliver it.
Can I ask, so I'm thinking about this, right? It's distressed inventory that you're buying at a lower price and then reselling to the consumer at a lower price. So the consumer gets some benefit if your supply chain can work logistically more efficiently than the wholesaler or grocery model. But I can't understand why that necessarily makes the TAM bigger in your market, right? So in theory, aren't you then just taking produce at a higher cost, which is maybe better for the consumer, but out of the traditional channels? And because people aren't buying more produce in theory, maybe they are, but if they're not buying more produce, all you're doing is hurting the traditional farmer supply chain that's at higher margin than your business to sell stuff. It's not unlike all of the retail stuff that used to be, sold, but then the retailers realized they were putting themselves out of business by selling all their distressed inventory online or in outlet malls or in other channels. So they took that all in-house, and they're still going out of business. And so, like, fundamentally, isn't that what you're doing? Is, you could say you're helping the farmer because they're making too much stuff, but you're really trying to get consumers to buy their products at a lower cost than they're currently buying them at, if it's not
And eliminate it
Yeah.
from the waste.
Yeah, well, but are you? Because all you're doing is they're buying it here instead of the grocery store. So now the grocery store is throwing it
But
away
that's where the
instead.
unpretty stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
comes in, yeah.
This will answer your question completely, I think.
Yeah.
Here's the kicker about Peko. It's a mystery box. So people don't know what they're going to get. So they can go to the grocery store and they can buy whatever they want if they know exactly what they want. But with Peko, you're getting 12 pounds of like whatever. And I think I'll just skip. What's a good one?
So
Like,
it's a CSA model.
yeah, it's like a CSA model, exactly. So like basically like all of this stuff, and I think like right here, like she had no idea what she was gonna get until like 2 days before is what we could like rescue. So if you want to stay in the grocery store, and most people like will continue going to these grocery stores because like they have like a set schedule, but like the people who buy from us, they're just getting random stuff for very cheap and very
And
like
do you get
cost-effective.
forecast with enough notice that says, this month, we've got, there may be 3 things you can't forecast. But this month, we have excess apples, and we have excess lettuce, and we have excess, do you have enough visibility as to what the excess is gonna be before that delivery?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that are very seasonal. So
Right.
like during the summer, we got like,
Excess of tomatoes,
yeah, we got so many tomatoes in the summer.
cucumbers.
Cucumbers were a big one in July as well. Wow, you're farming.
I like to eat.
But there's like crops like that. But we also see like just a lot of like summer stuff. And I think what's cool is like as you continue to gain like more like traction with like suppliers and like a lot of farms focus on certain crops. When you have that, and you kind of like know exactly what you're getting because they only specialize in like 3 crops, right? So like they could do apples and like lettuce and blueberries. That's one of our farms. And so we know that we're gonna get like something from them and it's gonna be one of those 3 things. So I guess that's kind of like the forecasty thing.
How does this scale?
Yeah. So I think what's cool is like basically there's so many business models in this, in the way that like one, like you could be a wholesaler, or you could be a pick and packer, or you can be like a delivery service, right? And like we don't want to like hone in on like all of them. That just makes us like 4 different like businesses. What we like really specialize in is sourcing all of the peculiar produce. Like no one else is trying to. Yeah, Peko. So we do all of the sourcing, and I think that's what makes us like very, very different. So if we like scale to like different cities, we can find the peculiar produce, and then like boom, we can find the warehouses. We can find like people who do last
the
mile.
beachhead is the peculiar produce,
Yes.
and that's what's driving initial customer engagement.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And
Peculiar being they're discovering
Ugly.
new produce. Is it new, like produce they're not used to, or is it ugly?
peculiar is imperfect. It's surplus. It's new. It's just kind of a big term that
Well, if I
encompasses
think about
all of
the
it.
U.S. competitors you mentioned in your case, like they're both big. I've actually looked at one of them a couple times, and they can't make money, and they're having trouble getting adoption out of certain cities. You know, they can do okay in San Francisco and New York and Seattle, probably here, and just okay. They still don't make money where they started. They raise a ton of money because everyone loves the idea,
Yep.
right, of like all this sustainability, food waste, very topical, all that stuff. But they can't figure out the supply. You know, no one makes money in this thing for the most part, or not very much money. The margins in all 4 of these businesses you're talking about are razor thin.
Yep.
And so, like, discovering new produce is a very different business model than I feel like I'm saving waste produce. And so I'm still slightly confused on if you're introducing people to produce in this mystery box they wouldn't normally find, which could be a
Got a lot
benefit
of
to the
kiwis.
farmer. Yeah, get a lot of kiwis and other. Or are you really taking the stuff being discarded and doing that? Because from what I see in the U.S., people have scaled that a little bit in certain big cities with a certain niche of the market that cares about sustainability and produce and healthy eating, but they can't scale it. And they're moving into packaged goods and other distressed inventory that is not imperfect. It's just it's expiring soon.
Yeah.
And that makes the supply chain even more difficult because you're taking stuff with a very limited shelf life versus stuff that has a longer shelf life. And you guys said in there, you might expand into that too. And no one's made that work. So I'm just trying to understand like what like really your core fundamental mission is here to the consumer.
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's true, they don't make money, but we do. And maybe it's because we're small, but like when we like look at like all of the partnerships that we have, we're very, very careful with like the strategics that we take in. So like the warehouses, that's what kind of like helps us scale. Like I know you're talking about misfits and imperfect. I actually worked in consumer VC for a while as well, and that's kind of like how we decided to start Peko. And it's like our metrics look very, very different from theirs. Like when I look at like our LTV and like CAC, like it's literally like 26 times. Like people who stay on for the long run because it's just cheap, and it's like very like good bang for your buck, right? Our boxes are cheaper as well. It's 25 Canadian, which is like 20-ish like US. So like our fundamental mission is always to provide like cheap stuff for a good price and to pay all of the people in the supply chain that are being affected. Will that result in lower margins? Yes, but like we're profitable right now, and we're okay with like all of that. Like it is a feel good.
How many customers do you have?
Huh?
How many customers are you delivering to right now?
For sure. So I mean, we started 10 months ago, less than 10 months ago, and since then every single week we have around 200 recurring customers.
Okay.
Yeah. So we've actually made $150,000 in sales in less than 10 months. If you take a look at our recurring, it's around 250,000.
Define for me what you think recurring is.
Every week they order something. You can
For
do
how many weeks? Like they become recurring because they've ordered for a month every week, or because they've ordered twice?
ordered twice, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. So we have like a subscription model. You just order it once and it's like autopilot.
Yep.
We've seen a 91% lifetime retention rate on all of the subscribers
Right, in the Vancouver area.
in the Vancouver
Yeah,
area.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Who are you competing with in the Vancouver area?
We're the only ones doing imperfect produce and focusing on imperfect produce. I'll show you the competitors in the Vancouver area, but it's like Spud, I guess, is kind of like a online grocer, and they have like one SKU of imperfect. So they're continuously getting like kind of like one Apple guy who's giving them everything. But like their stuff is also like very, very expensive. They kind of target like the higher end of like Vancouver. And based off of like customer interviews, like people who buy from Spud are kind of well off, whereas Peko is targeting like lower income households. Yeah, very, very feel good business.
Households, or would you, which is an interesting market segment, would you also do it to homeless shelters or that are serving meals, et cetera? Are they a target as well? In which case they'd buy more boxes.
Yeah. So we actually have a lot of partnerships like that. Like we donate a lot of stuff to the Vancouver community fridges.
Right.
So I guess like fridges that are open in like East Van is like kind of like where a lot of like homeless people live. And we are actually one of the only people that fill that fridge up so people can eat it. And we fill it up with like very like thoughtful items that they can eat raw. They don't have to cook it or anything. It's just like
Right,
apples.
but they're not subscribers. They're basically getting where there's excess from you as well.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And I will talk on like more B2B stuff as well. We're in talks with like affordable school lunch programs, and we actually have piloted like corporate gifting programs. So like Lululemon has like ordered like 25 like boxes for like all of like their employees, and it's like just like a gifting thing. It's like
Right.
here's some fresh like produce, and that's kind of like a cool stream. But right now we're focusing on like the everyday household.
Gotcha.
So you
Yeah.
say you're profitable, but with that kind of revenue, I guess, what kind of salaries are you guys taking? And if you're not taking a salary, then I go, that's not long-term sustainable for
Yep.
2, 5, 10 years. So kind of what's the ramp up to where you get to a sustainable business model? What kind of revenue rate do you need to be at?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, you're right. Sang and I aren't taking salaries, but we pay everybody that we employ. And I guess it's not sustainable right now. And I really haven't put that much thought into like when will I start paying myself. But like right now, I think I'm in a very like fortunate situation where I have like another job, and like that is paying for like my life and doing Peko.
What's your other job?
I work as a VC at Shopify. Yeah,
Sure.
and Sang does also another
Are you
marketing
guys
thing.
talking to her?
Hi. Yeah. I guess one more thing that maybe I should touch on is like, as you've seen with like imperfects and misfits, like we're not just going to focus on produce. We can bring other things that are higher in like profit margins, because produce is historically like very, very low. We can bring in things that are like upcycled, or in the case of like misfits, they give a good example with like olive oil. Like a sticker that is like upside down, they can't sell that. So we take all of that off their hands. And that kind of is how they've been addressing all of like their lower margins. And it's like increasing just like the AOV there.
Well, that is just a really stupid process.
Yeah, the fact that they're throwing it out, stupid. It's very, very dumb, and like this is
Yeah.
kind of why we were like born, I
You're
guess.
just opportunistic.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, this is Sang. She's very fun, and I wish you guys could have met her. But yeah, both of us are a big chillin'. We're passionate
Right.
about Peko. And our
What
team.
is her second job? What is Sang's second job?
She works for Clearco, which is like Clearbank, the
Right.
venture debt company.
Okay.
Yeah, so both of us are very like entrepreneurial. I started a bunch of companies in high school, and so did Sang. She actually started like this like magazine in like Vietnam when she was like 11. So I think at the very end of the day, like both her and I, like
Yeah.
we want to start our own company, and we
Right.
started Peko.
Right.
So we're in it for the long run. And we have some cool mentors too. And yeah, if we won, it would mean like a lot. I'm very, very scrappy. I think if you ask anybody about me, I'm also like very good with getting a little and taking it a long way. We won a competition a couple months ago, only like a small amount, it was 10,000, and I turned that into 80,000 through like grant funding, getting someone to match that. So I was able to employ like our entire team just off of that. So like a little goes a really, really long way. And we're also like hiring like crazy right now. This like whole last week, it was like interviews after interviews, but it's like growing pains.
Yeah. So you're enjoying it then?
I am enjoying it, and it's cool to meet so many people who are also passionate about the same problem.
Yep.
And like everyone in our team, like we make sure is mission driven. Like they just care about Peko.
What's the next geography you want to try and go after? Are you going to go over to Calgary? Are you going to go over to, where?
I think Toronto has the biggest TAM, and so
Right.
you also have a lot of like local farms there as well. And another cool thing about the produce industry is like, it's all like families. It's generations and generations of families. So like the people who started in Vancouver also like moved to Toronto, and like because we have so many relationships in Vancouver, it's the same people
Right.
in that like little group that are in Toronto. So we have like easy access there as well. Yeah.
Super.
I have a question. I don't know if you know the answer, but in your financials, it shows your COGS at 25%, whereas in the presentation it said your COGS were 40%, and it's obviously a big difference in operating margin. You're saying your gross margin in the financials are 45%, but it's not possible if your COGS are 40%.
For sure.
And so I just wondered which one was true.
I think this one would be more true to right now. I think
Okay.
I actually have no idea what like copy you have, but that was kind of like an exercise of like where we wanted to go to. So like
Okay.
by like increasing volume, I think that's what like the model is. It's just like a like fun exercise, but like when you get more stuff, like volume is king in produce, and you're able to lower your COGS significantly because you're getting stuff at like scale.
Yeah, because even those numbers are different than the numbers in the, because we had 40% for COGS and $5, which is 25% for CAC. And so these are the accurate ones.
These are accurate for right now. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to figure out.
Thanks for
how it
looking through
works.
that, by the way. It means a
Three
lot.
different sets of numbers, it's gonna
Yeah,
help.
well, multiple businesses, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
So what's the thing that keeps you up at night?
Everything. I don't know. I think like running a startup keeps me up at night. Growing our customer base. So like I think the reason why our LTV to CAC is like so like high is because like we barely put in any money into like marketing. And like when you look at like D2C brands, like everything is related to like CAC, and I know it goes up.
Yeah.
And like as it goes up, like you get more customers. Yes, it makes sense. But like we don't have like the financials to do that when we have to pay for everybody to like work, right?
Right.
So like to me, it's like how do I make sure I can get more new customers, but also like, you know, pay everyone fairly.
Right.
So I think that's just a question of like capital, I guess.
Yeah.
And that's what like keeps me up
So
a lot.
how much money, if you were presenting to yourself,
Yeah.
how much money would you be asking for in a standard VC lens, and asking for now?
Mm-hmm.
What would that number be?
I would be looking for around 300,000, and I guess maybe like a 15% dilution. So that would be like a 2.75. I think that's like the quick maths in my head, like Val.
Right.
Yeah.
How much time do you and your co-founder spend on this business versus your regular jobs?
Good question. I don't know. I feel like I'm pretty good at my job, so I'm able to work a lot on like both. Peko is like we deliver once a week. It's on Sundays, so my whole weekend is dedicated to Peko. And then like I work on the East Coast time for my other job, and this is in Pacific. So all my nights, all my weekends, and I think like
Sounds like fun.
honestly, it doesn't feel like work because I like care
you
about
enjoy
it.
it.
I enjoy it, and like I know it's doing good.
Yep.
And I think that's what gives Sang and I like fulfillment as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool.
I guess what would an exit strategy look like for you?
Yeah, good question. Right now, I mean, we're not planning for an exit. We don't like build like this company just to like think about how we can make money off of it. But like something that I considered a lot was like when you see like meal kits in like the States and Canada, they're pretty like different, like completely different. All of the meal kits in Canada that do well are Canadian founded. And I was talking about this to the judges yesterday, and they were like, yeah, it's because as an American company, you cannot get into like Canada. It's like we're
Not for
very
food.
protective.
Right.
And Misfits and Imperfect, like they have not thought about Canada once because they know that they can't get
Right.
in.
You can't do it for food.
So if there was anyone who would like really like us, it'd be them, right? We would be an entry strategy for them to get into Canada, and I know they have the money on their balance sheet if they wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But I think that's one thing that we've thought about.
So then does this just stay in Canada? Or
Yeah.
do you see this growing outside of Canada? Not necessarily in the US, but just outside of Canada.
Not in the U.S. for sure. I think we want to stay in Canada for the long term. It's pretty like far to like think a lot in the future, but right now I just want to stay in Canada. But who knows? Maybe it translates well to like other like international
Zealand.
stuff. New Zealand, Kiwis.
Lots of other countries have experienced.
You
the
say
same
that with
problem.
contempt.
Yeah. Well,
Kiwis.
I'm not sure what kind of like farms they have up in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Isn't it kind of cold there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tons of agriculture.
Maybe. Good suggestion. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Good questions.
Yeah.
Lymphasense from Johns Hopkins University. I will give you 10, 5, 2, and 1 minute warnings. It's open fire for the judges, so they may ask you questions right away.
Which means you can attack us.
Friendly fire.
You start, I'll get going. Good luck.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone, for being here. My name is Hunter from Lymphasense, and I'm joined by my teammate Benji here with me today. And our group is a team of biomedical engineering graduate students from
I was a biomedical engineer.
Oh, that's so nice. And we're from the Johns Hopkins Center for Bioengineering Innovation and Design. And Benji has experience with electrical engineering and sensors, and I myself have 4 years of medical device industry experience, part of a field sales organization. And together, our team's mission is to enable life-changing lymphedema screening for breast cancer patients and beyond.
Is that true to size?
Let's give it a moment.
So we've been having a competition to see how
Yes,
we get in.
exactly. So a breast cancer patient's biggest fear is their cancer coming back, but their second biggest fear is developing lymphedema. And lymphedema, being scared of developing it, this is a rational fear to have because more than 20% of women with breast cancer do develop lymphedema from their cancer treatment. So what is lymphedema? Well, it's a chronic and progressive vascular disease that's caused by damage to the body's lymphatic system. And we need the lymphatic system to flush out toxins and to fight infection. But it can be damaged during cancer treatment, like surgery to lymph nodes, radiation to those same areas, and even chemotherapy. Right now, there are 800,000 women in the US suffering from breast cancer-related lymphedema, and more than 40,000 women will develop it each year. Lymphedema can become completely debilitating if it's left untreated. You can see over time a patient's arm swells many times its original size with fluid, and eventually their tissue becomes permanently remodeled into fat and fibrosis. But no matter what stage of the disease a patient is in, their life can ultimately become driven by having to care and manage this disease. Because lymphedema management can be a patient's full-time job. Look at everything they have to do. They go to physical therapy many times a week. They have to be bandaged with layers of compression. They wear a compression sleeve sometimes 23 hours a day, even sleeping in one at night. At late stages of the disease, they have to have expensive microvascular surgeries that last 12 hours, and they're very susceptible to frequent infections like cellulitis, which can become life-threatening for them. And all of these things result in $8,000 in direct insurance claims annually for the rest of a patient's life. So how can we prevent patients from ever getting
reimbursed?
Not very much. That's actually an underestimate because, of course, this out-of-pocket things are not reported. So how do we prevent patients from, spending all this time and money having to manage this? We know early intervention leads to superior clinical outcomes. But right now, patients only go to their doctor's office after they begin to experience outward symptoms like swelling or tingling or pain in their arm. At this point, the disease has progressed past the earliest stages. Treatment's not as effective as it could have been. So with Lymphasense, our goal is to detect the earliest warning signs of lymphedema so that patients can be referred for short-term compression therapy. And this way, compression therapy has been clinically shown to slow or halt the disease progression. And a recent breakthrough research study has demonstrated just this, that using a sensitive method to detect the earliest signs of lymphedema, such as bioimpedance, actually results in a major reduction in disease progression. In this study, it was 1,200 patients, and they followed them for 5 years after cancer treatment. And using early detection, like bioimpedance, actually saved more than half of patients who would have otherwise developed this chronic disease from ever having to live with lymphedema long term.
Could this sensor also detect early things like congenital heart failure or other swelling kind of diseases? Or?
Yeah, at its core, our device is a fluid monitoring technology. We certainly see applications in renal cardiac markets. So we have designed Lymphasense to fill clear gaps left by our competitors. Our only real competitor is the tape measure. And existing commercial solutions like ImpediMed and a pyrometry device are extremely expensive. They're very bulky, they're hard for patients to use, and most importantly, they're limited to use in a clinic alone. Lymphasense is the only solution that provides affordable early detection in a home care setting. And we have designed Lymphasense with patients in mind. Our device is comprised of a sensor and single-use electrodes. And using this, it transfers information wirelessly via Bluetooth to a patient's mobile application and to an online web portal for physicians to use. This way, information can be shared between patients and their doctors, and ultimately, decision-making about their disease progression can be shared over time. So what happens when a doctor gets an alert? So we're going to choose a threshold of a 6.5% change to trigger an alert to a doctor that their patient may be developing lymphedema. At that point, that would be the sign to refer that patient to short-term compression therapy.
This is Bluetooth enabled?
Yes, it is.
To both
What's your-
Apple and to
Android.
Android?
Yep.
Thanks.
What's your rate of false positives?
So we're still detecting that right now in our testing. And Benji will speak to that a little bit later.
What is the short-term, what is meant by short-term compression? Because you set up to 23 hours a day, so is this?
Yep, so this is that 23 hours a day, that's for the rest of their life.
Right.
This is just 4 weeks, 12 hours a day.
Okay, and that's enough to significantly curtail the development of any symptoms. So you do that 4 weeks, or, 4 weeks, 12 hours a day? Mm-hmm. And then what? Are you waiting 6 months? Is it a year? Is it 4 weeks, 12 hours a day? And then you're done?
You're done. So that short, immediate treatment window is what has been clinically proven to even reverse the disease so that patients never have to wear compression again.
And if you miss that window, what happens?
Exactly, that's a critical window. So then you're slowly developing this over time and it gets harder and harder to treat and reverse.
So does it have to have disease onset in order for this to work, or can this work, basically, you go through your therapy, and then the next 4 weeks, you are...
Just wear them.
Just wear them.
Yeah, so there's been a little bit of mixed opinions so far where people who have perfectly healthy functioning lymphatics start compression therapy. It can actually damage the lymphatic vessels, so it's important to begin it only when indicated. Yeah. This really is our value, though, is this referral to treatment, because without this action, this disease is being left unchecked. So Lymphasense is easy for patients to use. You can think of it like a blood pressure cuff. You put it on, you take a measurement, and then you take it off, you're done with it. It's not a wearable device. And the whole process takes under 5 minutes. And so we envision Lymphasense being used more frequently directly after cancer treatment, 1 time per week, because that's when the risk is greatest. And then patients would transition to monitoring themselves just 1 time per month for another 2.5 years. And we recommend this 3-year monitoring period because we know 90% of lymphedema cases arise during this time frame after cancer treatment. And our customers have validated this need. We've been diligent about speaking with clinicians and patients both with and without lymphedema. And 98% of the patients we've spoken to would use a lymphedema monitoring device. And we've spent over 500 hours in plastic surgery clinics and physical therapy clinics hearing from them exactly what they want in a device so that we can design this for the people who will actually be using it.
And what's the FDA process for this?
Yep, we will speak to that. It'll be a 510(k). Okay. Yep. And we've been very fortunate to have patient advocates from day one involved in our development. One of them told us that Lymphasense would empower me to regain control of something that often feels outside of my control. And right now, the market trends are on our side. Momentum is building day by day about lymphedema as patient advocates are continuing to use their voice. And recently, a new designation has been released by the Lymphatic Education and Research Network to become a lymphedema center of excellence. And this is so that the leading research institutions in the country can adopt this designation by providing full spectrum prevention and treatment for patients at risk of lymphedema. Additionally, payers and people who set reimbursement like the AMA are expanding home monitoring codes, and this shift has only been accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic. Evidence that early detection is what clinically stops lymphedema disease progression, coupled with that short-term compression therapy I mentioned. The case is stronger and stronger for that every single day, and we hope to contribute to that as well with our own white papers.
How long have you been working on this?
So we have started in June this project. Yep.
Who owns the IP?
So the IP is jointly owned by Baxter International, our clinical sponsor, and Johns Hopkins University.
And is your license exclusive?
Yeah, we're negotiating an exclusive license for the technology right at this very moment, actually. Yep.
And are you going to continue working on this post-degree?
Yes, 50% of our team will be full-time members, and the other 50 will be part-time.
How, typically, what kind of ownership does Johns Hopkins take? Or what kind of stake do they want in this? And then if it's jointly owned by Johns Hopkins and Baxter, what does Baxter want?
So we have great relationships with Baxter. They have told us time and time again, this product does not fit into their existing portfolio, and we anticipate a fairly straightforward license to be negotiated with them because they don't want this device for their own microvascular surgery portfolio. Yep. So our entry market is a $64 million entry, and that's 10% capture of the breast cancer population. And we're starting with breast cancer because this is the largest patient group affected by this in the US, and they're also one of the most vocal about the need for early lymphedema detection. But we're not going to stop there because there are other people at risk of developing lymphedema. If you've had other cancers like prostate cancer, gynecologic cancer, head and neck cancer, sarcoma, melanoma, all of those patients are also at risk of developing lymphedema. And when we can serve them for the need for early detection, our market is $2 billion in the US. Additionally, there are 10 million Americans who already have lymphedema and are living with it every day. And there is a need for continued tracking of the disease to see which treatments are helping over time. When we can help serve those patients and become the standard of care for both early detection and lymphedema monitoring, our market grows to $9.5 billion.
What's the, we sort of were asking this before, but post-diagnosis and even post many years diagnosis, what's the benefit that they get and what sort of time frame? I mean, we understand what the delta is if you catch it early.
Right.
But what's the benefit catching it late? How much can you help?
So the picture I showed with the 4 different arms, if you catch it even up stage 0, 1, or 2, there can be some good benefit for reducing swelling through lifestyle interventions and compression, other types of things. And so using a device like this could very much benefit you. If you're at that late stage where I was talking about expensive surgeries and prone to infections, it's harder to really reverse the volume of your limb. At that stage, you actually have to have microvascular surgeries and liposuction. But there is a need to track the outcome of those surgical interventions. A lot of those are considered experimental by insurance companies, and having some quantitative data about does this help with the disease and reduce its progression would be very beneficial even for those.
Related for downstream.
Exactly, yep. I will hand it over to Benji.
Thank you, Hunter. Our sensors use a novel technology, which is a combination of 2 different sensing modalities, bioimpedance spectroscopy, as previously discussed, and near-infrared spectroscopy. These 2 sensors work in parallel to detect underlying fluid changes in the region that you are measuring. We also have a custom electrode that are custom printed and designed to be much more precise than normal dry electrodes. Up until recently, these sensors were relegated to very bulky devices that could not be moved to home care settings, but thanks to advances in technology, we have been able to miniaturize these sensors into something that can fit in the palm of your hand.
I'll pass this around for you guys.
You're the demo dolly here?
Yes, yes.
So this is fully non-invasive?
Yes.
Fully non-invasive.
This is a functional prototype.
Yeah, and to take advantage of this wonderful technology that we have a preliminary patent application that we have filed and we've previously discussed. We've also added several other form factors and configurations of these so no other company can take advantage of weaknesses. And as we said, we've jointly filed this with Baxter and Johns Hopkins Tech Ventures, and we'll be able to negotiating the license agreement.
I mean, obviously, this is a prototype.
Yeah.
The ideal metamorphosis of this is, I would imagine, smaller
No wires.
form factor, no wires,
So
right?
exactly what you saw on the
Right.
opening
Right, through
image.
Bluetooth and, yeah.
Yep, so that already does Bluetooth to a tablet,
Right.
but we would just like to minimize the
Right.
wires next, just have it sit right on top of the
Gotcha.
electrode itself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, because I was looking at
No.
that as you were talking. What parts of this are specifically proprietary to you or Johns Hopkins or Baxter?
Do you want to speak to that for the sensors?
Yeah, so with regards to the sensors, we have the proprietary for us is that combination of bioimpedance and NIRS working in conjunction together, as well as a software algorithm that we are currently developing that will interpret the data from these and process it as an index score that will be that indication that you're developing lymphedema, you're at risk, you should seek care.
The hardware and the software.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can also speak to the benchtop testing we have conducted thus far, which has been on synthetic skin rigs, which has simulated a very rapid accumulation of lymphedema. The idea of this is that we inject fluid at a very rapid rate and detect changes in this in our benchtop model. And we've compared this to in-human results of measuring IV infiltration with the same technology. That's when you have an IV in your vein and it dislodges and leaks fluid. And what we see is a very clear mirroring between the two, where before there's any fluid leak, the data is nice and flat, and once there's a leak, you see a nice linear decrease in results. This data was actually collected in collaboration with our industry partners at Baxter. To further validate these sensing modalities, we'll be conducting a clinical study this spring and summer at the Johns Hopkins Medical Institute on patients with and without lymphedema.
Is the economic buyer on this the oncologist, or?
Yep, it's sold to clinics in a bulk purchasing model. Yep.
Are you expecting insurance coverage, or are you expecting this to be an out-of-pocket purchase?
We will, yep, we'll talk about that. There is an existing CPT code that's currently reimbursed by Medicare at $140 and some major private insurers at $190.
Okay.
Yeah, and to speak to FDA approval, oh sorry.
No, I just said we are so screwed up, but
Yes.
different conversation.
That's okay. But yeah, to speak to your question earlier about FDA approval, we will be seeking a 510K with a clear predicate, and that'll be this device, ImpediMed's SOZO device, which is a competitor that uses bioimpedance in a worse way than we do. So we have validated this approach with the law firm Hogan Lovells, and we also have had recently a meeting with the FDA to review a mock pre-sub submission we have written. And there we've not only gotten good feedback on this is the right route to take, but also positive affirmation that we will not need to submit any clinical data with our 510K. All we need to do is conduct human factors and safety tests, and that's sufficient for what we are seeking. So as we mentioned, Lymphasense is going to be sold directly to clinics for the oncologists and surgeons to prescribe to their patients. And there will be three main revenue streams. The first is the sensor device itself, which will be priced at $300, the single-use patch electrodes at $10, and the software, which we are currently developing, at $38 per patient per month. And these will have, oh yes?
Right, so on the subscription, given the past conversation, there's some point here where you're not going to need it, depending on what the stage is.
3 years.
So the
Yeah, so this
subscription
would
is
be
for the amount of time, and then you can.
Yes, so we're
Unsubscribe.
suggesting that 3-year critical window is when a patient would need this. Yep.
And before you got $1,000 a month flat fee, at least in the materials we got. And now
Yes,
you
we
go to
changed
per
it.
patient, like, what was that, market feedback, or what drove the change?
Yep, exactly. So it was meetings with some of our business advisors that just a better way for us to capture revenue is this per patient model. Also, this makes more sense for small clinics too, because we don't want to just screw them over if they don't have as many patients or the resources to pay. So it's to cater to clinics of all sizes, and that was one of the reasons we changed that.
And why would, oh, I'm sorry, Bill.
No, you're good.
Why would a clinic say no to this?
In my opinion, we don't think that there's a reason to say no. They do have to be able to make their money back, and so that does hinge on the reimbursement for the CPT code that is already used for lymphedema assessment.
And there's no requirement they buy more than one device at a time? And do they order from you and then you ship it to the clinic or the customer? Like, what's the fulfillment model?
Yeah, so it would be literally purchasing those devices to sit in the clinic. So they would have a stock of these devices, and then when they prescribe it to patients, they would send a patient home with the device and then also the electrodes.
Restock.
Yes, exactly.
So do you have like a modeled payback period for the clinic? Like, is it 6 months they're already positive on this? Or?
Yeah, so we've modeled how many measurements it takes for a clinic to recoup their cost. And on average, for the clinics we're looking at, it's really only 8 measurements per patient needed.
What percent of people progress all the way to stage 4?
50%.
So this is a cynical question, but is there going to be pressure from the providers for those later stage patients not to use this?
The patients that we've talked to, the providers we've talked to, so our advisors are the microvascular surgeons who are doing these complicated surgeries. They still really want a way to track the outcomes of those surgeries. They're surgeons, they want to keep doing them, and they need to be able to prove that their patients benefit from this and it's covered by insurance. So that the people we've talked to, they would want this even for those people that are at the advanced stages.
But you're potentially reducing the number of people substantially if you're preventing people from getting to stage 4.
Yes.
So while certainly it benefits them to show better outcomes, if you're cutting their potential patient population. Yeah.
There are other.
I mean, it's healthcare.
There is a hypocritical pressure.
There's other surgeries, so there's less invasive surgeries that actually are more effective when you do it earlier on in the stage, so stage 1 or stage 2, and those surgeries could increase if we're being a cynical view and increasing surgery there. Yeah.
Earlier you said the tape measure was your biggest competitor, but then you just referenced not as good competitor for your path to the 5K, 10K. You know, are they a competitor or not a competitor to the tape measure and to you? And why is your solution better than theirs? You kind of just glossed over them as a competitor.
Yeah, tape measure is the most commonly used tool. The ImpediMed device, there's only 700 in circulation worldwide. It's not clinically adopted. It's extremely expensive, $10,000 capital purchase, $1,500 per month. Even resourced institutions like Hopkins have not been able to convince their department to buy it or to invest in it. So they are a commercial device, and we have the benefit from benefiting and following their 510K application, looking at their clinical data, but it's still not widely used in practice. So at this time, we think with our form factor and advances in technology, because we use a combination of sensors besides just the one that they use, we do not see them as a major impediment to us, no pun intended.
Got it.
Where are these, I mean, ultimately, I'm sure right now you're building these one by one in the lab, but where do you ultimately see this being manufactured?
So we have a third-party manufacturing company that's most likely in San Diego, California. That's where it will be. Can we keep going?
Yeah, and I can actually also speak to the fact that these cost of goods sold that we have listed on this are validated by Maxim Manufacturing, which we have been in contact with for potential manufacturing
Who's
of our
developing the
hardware.
software?
Us.
Yes. Yeah.
Are you also doing the hardware design, or do you have a design firm you're working with?
Yeah, so we are taking this design that is already used by Baxter for a different application. We've adapted it ourselves for this application. So we have the benefit of building on the 3 years of their experience and then doing that ourselves. So it's just been us right now.
Yeah, so speaking a bit more towards the clinical value proposition of using Lymphasense, we have worked with a reimbursement consultant to create a location modification to an existing CPT code that, as Hunter said, is reimbursed by both Medicare and private insurers at $140, $190 respectively. And our plan is for physicians to be billing for a 36 measurement period over the course of 3 years. And so from this, we've calculated that these clinics will be able to generate about $5,000 in revenue from this process. And this is very exciting for some of these clinics because especially some of the largest centers that have lymphedema and breast cancer patients, anywhere from 1 to 5,000 breast cancer patients in these centers of excellence, they're called. That means that their revenue could easily be between $3 and $13 million. And the good news is that thus far, through some of our connections, we have clinicians ready to convince their hospital purchasing departments to get this for them. As for Lymphasense, our revenue projections see us making about $25 million by 2028 with a 4% market capture. So, as discussed, our initial customers will be these 26 lymphedema centers of excellence, or LEARN centers as they're called, one of which is actually OHSU right here in Portland, which is really exciting. The idea is that we will employ a 2-person sales team to start at these institutes starting in the Northeast and the West Coast, and from there we will expand and hire more along the rest of these centers.
And is that the Hutch up in Seattle?
Oh, yeah, it is. Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we'll also be planning to leverage a lot of existing connections we have right now, such as Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, Maryland, where we're from, WellSpan York Hospital in Pennsylvania, and Stony Brook University Hospital on Long Island, New York. So this is our company timeline, and we plan for the next 3 years to be finishing our product development in R&D, fine-tuning our software, and conducting more clinical studies. By 2024, we'll be ready to submit our 510(k) application with FDA approval coming the next year in 2025, and by then we'll be ready to enter the market. And the next year after that, we'll be ready to expand further beyond our initial market, and we'll be profitable.
When do you guys graduate that you'll be doing this full-time?
May 19th.
Oh,
Very
You said
soon.
that you don't need any clinical data for the FDA. So what are the validation trials for?
Yep, so the clinical studies there. So we're running this over the summer to fine-tune our algorithm even more to connect these large data sets from people with and without lymphedema. And then it's a great question because we don't need to do these crazy extensive longitudinal clinical studies. We think that it would be beneficial to start one so that we can start moving the needle on reimbursement. Even though we don't need clinical data for FDA approval, we know it's important to payers and for doctors ultimately to adopt this. So we're going to start to plan one clinical study that will be a little bit more longitudinal.
And how big is that going to be?
We estimate it'll be about 100 patients.
Mm-hmm. And I can also speak to some of the human factors and safety testing we do, because those are typically just to make sure that when humans use it, they know what they're doing and it's not going to harm them if they don't do what they're doing. And those are fairly typical in most products that go through a 510(k).
And the FDA has told us that we really only need 15 people, 15 doctors, 15 patients for those tests.
Mm-hmm.
And are you going to be managing that trial internally, or are you going to outsource it?
Internally is the plan.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be hiring someone.
Yes. And so thus far, we're seeking $2.5 million in seed funding to carry us through to our next period of 3 years, and the majority of which will be allocated to product development and R&D, running more clinical studies, and employee salaries. And thus far, we've actually managed to raise $274,000.
Oh, you're right on your way.
Thank you. And our key value milestones will be that initial in-human study that we're planning, along with a design freeze because of development of our minimum viable product, and that initial human factors, safety, usability testing for the FDA.
And is that a convertible note or equity round or?
Yeah, it would be a convertible note. That's what we're seeking.
Mm-hmm.
And how much will Johns Hopkins put in?
They have not put in anything so far. This is winnings from business competitions. That's what I'm saying. All right, keep going.
Yeah, and we've also identified several exit opportunities at companies such as Hologic, Essity, and Smith & Nephew, all of which are companies in women's health with interest in lymphedema care.
Get Johns Hopkins by basically getting Mayo Ventures just come in first, because they would hate to lose to them.
Yeah, so our investor is Texas Medical Center Innovation, right. So we have connections with MD Anderson as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And Baylor, I'm sure.
Yes, yep.
Mm-hmm.
Do Essity and Smith & Nephew have devices, or do they provide other kinds of care that are all analog?
Good catch, right? They have a lot of different compression garments, but they are trying to move into patient monitoring. So this is like a new vertical that they're trying to adopt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so why should you all believe us with what we're doing? Well, Lymphasense is made up of a very talented team of 6 graduate-level biomedical engineering students with experience across industry, engineering, research, and business. And we've been working on this product for over a year and are very motivated to succeed. And we're also assisted by a wonderful advisory board filled with a diverse group of leaders across industry who have experience in bringing medical device startups to life, world-class surgeons and clinicians in the lymphedema space, and key patient advocates and influencers as well who are in the lymphedema space, and we've had great contact with in the past.
I want to go back to that as a question for a second, since I know we're short on time. If these companies are trying to move into the medical device space, they're going to have a very different perspective on what an acquisition looks like and what kind of traction you're going to need to have, what kind of comps you're going to need to they'll use, versus a company that's familiar with the FDA process, is familiar with what it takes to bring a device to market. So talk a little bit more about where you think that acquisition might happen and what you think you need to achieve.
Yeah, so I think our main target is Hologic, the first company we listed. They do already have devices, and we're actually pitching to their head of business development in a few weeks for this. They have told us they are more interested in purchasing ideas rather than a fully fleshed out medical product because they have the resources themselves to bring it to life. So in that case, I don't think that we would need a crazy clinical trial. Again, we'll hear from them in a few weeks exactly what that could look like, and I'm hopeful that it could be more early rather than later.
Yeah, so I'd like to conclude this presentation with a message to you all, and that is an ask for you all to please help us protect all of the women in your lives that will be treated for cancer by supporting us at Lymphasense. So thank you all very much for watching, and if there's any more questions, if we have time, we can take that. Otherwise,
I think we
thank
do.
you. Perfect.
Thank you for your engaged questions.
Live to the world. It's kind of weird though, because I talk into the mic, but it doesn't amplify anything. So I'm just talking into the mic, and nobody really cared. Oh, there we go. Ooh, that's like my class. I always get them in the morning. You guys ever have 9 a.m. instructors that are like, "Hey, good morning," and then you're like, "Welcome to the end of the New Venture Championship." You like that? Hey, this has been a fantastic event. I hope you guys have enjoyed yourselves here. This is the first time we've had this event in this building. I think it's worked out really well. I hope you've enjoyed the facilities and the program that we've put on for you. Did everyone get out and about and feel like they enjoyed Portland a little bit? Yeah? We got thumbs up on Portland? Good spot? Did anybody find good beer? Yeah? Yeah, we got beer. Did anyone find Powell's Bookstore? Powell's Book, what'd you think? It's a big old bookstore, huh? Very cool, very cool. Japanese Garden, anybody make it up there? You guys, Arkansas, you guys are all over the place. Cool. What? No, we don't give you a trophy for that. What do you think this is, Little League? Come on, man, I know, it's not Little League. Sorry, so I'm having fun because, one, this is almost the end of this event, and we've been working for, how many months? Probably 6 months to make these things happen. So another round of applause for Amy and all that she does. And also for our AHA team that does all the awesome branding and signs and all that stuff. And our team in the back and up front. Well, I mean, you got a guy in the back. But the team from Hand in Hand Productions that has been doing all of the sound and video to make this all live on the interwebs and capture it for the rest of your lives. What? And a great tech team from the University of Oregon. Yes, don't want to forget those guys because they're in the background as well, and all those that are here. So what we're going to do right now is the 60-second elevator pitch competition. This is a no props, no script, unless you want to read from a note card, but you can do that. Nothing wrong with that. But no props, 60-second pitch. Right? So we have 3 distinguished, amazing judges. Don't laugh, Shannon. You're distinguished. It's okay. And I'll introduce them very quickly, and then we will get started. Shannon Oliver. Shannon Oliver is a co-founder of Red Duck Foods, which was a competitor in this event in 2013. It was a organic, natural condiments company started by Shannon and several students in my class of fall of 2012. First class I ever taught, and Shannon and her friends were like, "We want to make ketchup." And I was like, "That sounds cool." And so we got to do we got a bunch of samples, and we had a lot of French fries and tater tots in class. It was awesome. So Shannon is now, what do you do now? You are the...
I am the Associate Director of Logistics and Planning at the Oregon Food Bank. So I plan all of our food for the state of Oregon.
Yes, so I told you, talk to Peko Produce. She's the food person. Anyway, so she has exited entrepreneurial life and has a stable, steady job. Yes. Our second judge is Caleb Eorg. Caleb is an Oregon MBA from 2011. Finance concentration MBA, went on to be the CFO of a company called, at the time, Society 43. Then it moved into, was called Revent Optics because they sold Society 43. A lot of different transactions, but basically he was in the sunglasses business, right? And the awesome part about that sunglasses business was, at the time, it was branded, like logoed sunglasses for the college market, and so they made a pretty good, they had a pretty good run when the Ducks were doing really good, and yeah. Yeah, it's like, we're going to sell sunglasses. Everybody wants to have duck gear. It was a good deal. And so now Caleb has got a startup called Daniel House, which is a marketplace for designers and interior designers, etc. Cool. Welcome, Caleb. And finally, Mr. Jim McCrite, who is a longtime supporter of the University of Oregon's entrepreneurial program, currently has a grandson in school down at the university, and Jim's happened to reach out to me the day that I was like, "Oh man, I need another elevator pitch judge." Jim's like, "Is there anything I could do for you?" I'm like, "Yes." So Jim has done pitch competitions over many decades where he's been involved with the Oregon Entrepreneurs Network, Angel Oregon, I don't know, there's many more, I'm sure, and is currently the director of the Oregon Technology Business Center, which is a startup accelerator, incubator, service provider up in Beaverton, which is where Nike is, just west of here. So welcome, Jim. So we will have 60-second pitches. I will draw a name from the Rhinemouth Cup. There are little ducks in here, little ducks with your names on them, or your venture's name on them. And then you'll have 60 seconds. Mr. Hand will get you a lapel mic so we can catch your sound, and you can just hold onto this thing, right? We can clip it on, we can hold onto it, whatever you want. So we'll do a quick little transition time, and that will be it. And a hard stop at 60 seconds because you guys have your slide, right?
There will be a slide. Sam, can you just click that?
So that will run behind you.
In addition to that, at the very end, you will hear a bell that says you are done.
So not quite as crazy as they have. If you ever go to the Bangkok, Thailand competition, they have like a 99-second pitch thing that's like 20 feet tall behind you, and it's a little stressful. So we're not going to be that stressful, but I will try to loosen everybody up as they come up. So, any questions? Who wants to go first? No, I'm going to draw. All right. The first victim is Claw Industries. You guys ready to rock? Absolutely. All right. I mean, and we'll put the other ones in there.
Oh, just do one of these.
There you go. Yeah, you're easy, man. You just put it in your sweatshirt. There we go. All right, you ready?
Yes, I am.
How many of these have you done?
3.
3. All right. Well, I'm going to get out of your way, and then when you start talking, we'll start the thing, right? You ready?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Positive.
Okay.
So that glass bottle that you finished last week and tossed into your recycling bin is currently sitting in your landfill, since it's mixed with a bunch of paper, plastic, and metal, making it unusable for new bottles or anything else. At Claw Industries, we process this waste to decarbonize the cement industry that creates 8% of global CO2 emissions. That is 4 times higher than the entire aviation industry. So if you're interested in learning how a couple of college students in steel toes and sweatshirts have raised over $600,000 in non-dilutive funding, purchased a production facility in cash, and have received a letter of intent from an industry whose latest innovation took place when Vanderbilt was building the railroads, we would love the opportunity to talk with you. Thank you.
Boom. Done. Wow. All right.
There you go.
Nice work. All right. So you get a draw. Yeah, you get to draw. Yeah. Oh, there we go. I think so.
Speak it.
Speak IT. Who's up? Speak IT? Speak it? Speak it. Right. There we go. All right. 2 duckies down. Are you ready, Doctor? Doctor? Nobody gets that joke anymore. Doctor? Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Doctor.
Isn't that
Doctor?
I think Spies Like Us, I think. Doctor?
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Doctor? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Think of it.
No idea.
Do you know who Dan Aykroyd is?
Nope.
Oh, jeez. All right. All right. Take it away, Kai, whenever you're ready.
Healthcare providers would love to spend every second of their workday solely focused on their patients. Unfortunately, this isn't possible. Providers are constantly typing and clicking on their computers to complete medical record charting requirements. This leads to stress, exhaustion, burnout, and ultimately distraction from your medical care. Enter Speak It. As a medical student, I was inspired to try and fix this problem, and so I pursued a dual degree MBA to learn how to turn this problem into an opportunity to impact the lives of patients and providers alike. We are building a voice recognition technology that allows a provider to speak their intended actions in the medical chart into existence in the computer system that's very much like Siri for healthcare providers. This allows a provider to increase efficiency of their work and ultimately reduces their burnout so they can provide better quality care. We already have 2 healthcare practice partnerships, and we're planning to get our product to market after we raise a seed round, hire our full-time CTO, and ultimately get our beta test to our provider. Thank you.
Nice. Well timed. Well timed. Good work. Good work. And the coat works perfectly for that. You get a draw. You get a draw, Kai. Don't leave. You get to pick the next victim or participant. What we got here?
Beam
Commerce.
Beam Commerce. All right. Bring up the Canadian coders. Let's rock it. Ah. The Canadian Commerce. Something. The Canadian Commerce Kamikazes. How's that? I don't mean that's probably not a good. That's probably not a great analogy.
Right.
You ready, man?
Ready.
You didn't do much of the talking this morning,
No,
so
I
you
did
got.
not.
This is your time to shine. Are you ready?
Yes.
All right.
All right.
You ready for me to leave you alone?
Yeah.
All right.
We've generated more than $35 million for our customers because what I'm about to tell you is incredibly effective. My name is Varun, and I'm a co-founder of Beam Commerce. A few years ago, I built an e-commerce store which did over $2 million in sales before it became unprofitable and failed. It failed because the technology available was too confusing and didn't work with my store. That's why we launched Beam, with the goal of building simple apps to boost revenue for e-commerce stores. Our first app was Aftersell, which gave merchants the ability to upsell their customers after they purchase. Now we have a suite of 5 apps that help with upselling, store design, order tracking, and more. In the next month, we expect to do $50,000 in monthly recurring revenue, fully bootstrapped. With our domain knowledge and previous startup experience, our team is hoping to revolutionize the e-commerce industry. Thank you.
Awesome. Good work, Varun. I feel good to have that done?
Yeah.
There we go. All right. There you go. All right. Let's see. Can you reach in there? Who's next?
Peko Produce.
Peko Produce. Peko, right? Peko. Ariel, you've been doing everything this weekend. How's that been? It's been all right. It's been all right.
I was like, maybe the co-founder, other one should do the
Yeah, I think that co-founder gets the whole next competition by herself.
I think so too.
Okay.
I need a break.
Yeah, I think you've earned it. You've earned it. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
Judges ready? All right.
$3.1 billion worth of food and vegetables are discarded every single year in Canada. And this is simply due to imperfect produces or surplus produce. Meanwhile, 1 in 7 households in Canada are food insecure. Introducing Peko Produce, an online grocery service that delivers all of these peculiar produces to people's doorsteps for up to 40% off retail prices. In the 9 months that we've been operating, we've generated over $150,000 in sales, saved over 100,000 pounds of produce from going to the landfill, and also have saved our customers over $375,000 on their grocery bills. So I have a lot of time left, but join us on creating an environmentally sustainable future for all Canadians that is affordable.
Awesome. Thank you. Good work. Thank you. Hand that to that man. There we go. That's all right. We're good. There we go. All right. Yeah. All right. Who's up? It's quacked. Lymphasense. It is. Everything's quacktastic around here. I don't know where we got these, but the Quacktastic Award was the thing, so we had extra ducks. All right, you ready?
Yeah, let's go.
It's just like skiing. Just point your skis down the hill and go.
I just got a pizza a little bit.
You got to have pizza or French fries. Which
Yeah,
one do you
yeah,
like?
exactly.
All right, take it away.
All right. Right now, 800,000 breast cancer survivors are living with a debilitating disease of lymphedema, which causes pain and swelling that never goes away. With early detection, you can actually prevent this disease from progressing with short-term compression therapy. But right now, current diagnostic methods are not catching the disease early enough. Lymphasense is a simple patch that measures fluid buildup over time so that patients and their doctors can detect the disease before it is too late. Over 60 patients have told us they want a way to monitor their lymphedema disease progression and risk. On social media and through advocacy groups, we have patients messaging us asking us how they can get our device. We have a clinical study set to run at Johns Hopkins this summer and a working prototype. For seed funding, we're asking for $2.5 million to bring Lymphasense through regulatory submission. Help us protect the women in your life who will be treated for breast cancer. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Drop that mic, and then we got 3 more left. 3 more left. I'll tilt it your way. You can have the duck if you would like the duck. Would you like the duck?
Yes. Her eyes in house.
All right, here. Let me, while they come up here, let me give you your Lymphasense duck. There, you can have that. And anybody else who wants your duck, we'll just put them out here. All right, are you ready?
I'm ready.
You ready to represent Arkansas?
So ready.
You carry the entire weight of the state is on your shoulders.
That's a lot of pressure.
That's a lot of pressure, but I know you can do it. Take it away.
All right. There is a troubling trend in the American pharmaceutical industry. Since 2008, 1 in 8 of our community pharmacies have closed. If this continues, over 100 million Americans run the risk of losing convenient access to their medication. That would mean driving an hour with a screaming toddler in the backseat just to get antibiotics for an ear infection, or panicking when dad's insulin is delayed in the mail. Horizon Health Solutions offers one-click software products that increase pharmacy margins. Last year, we made one pharmacy an additional $800,000 in profit. We're raising a $500,000 seed round so that we can hire a VP of engineering and integrate our technology into the commercial pharmacies with which we already have traction. With your vote today, we can help keep these pharmacies in business and their patients healthy. Thank you.
Nice. Good job, Amy. That goes to
yeah.
him. That goes to him. I'm gonna put the ducks out here. You guys can grab them when you want. You're probably tall enough to reach in here. Yeah?
All right.
There's, I think, second to last. Who's?
Sell with Auto.
Sell with Auto. Our guys from Harvard. All right, are you ready, man?
I don't know, maybe.
Maybe, why not? Why not? Well, just shake it out. You'll be all right. Yeah. I'm going to just bug you a little bit because I want to keep this going longer. Is that okay?
Yeah, we
No.
can get some rat-a-tat. Okay. 87% of sales teams are missing their pipeline generation goals. And they're spending 30% of their days writing personalized cold outreach. This is ineffective because a salesperson can only really think about the emails they've written in the past and not the emails that everyone's written, right? We at Sell with Auto are taking data from all over the web and personalizing cold outreach using data from both the seller and the receiver of outreach to find connections at scale. This allows us to increase response rates higher than anything else on the market. Today, we work with 10 customers and have been able to triple their response rates at scale. That's really it. We're not raising any money. We're good. We're just having a good time. Happy to be here in Oregon.
Awesome. All right. Cool. That's a really good thing to say if you're an entrepreneur. You're like, listen, I don't actually need any money, so just, we're just here talking about our thing.
But if anyone, needs help with cold outreach.
Cold outreach, and there might be a thing. Oh, wait, here. You're in here, dude. You're right here. You want? Oh, yeah, we'll get you your duck. You choose the last one. I'll get you your duck. Power, play her. Sell with Auto. There you go. There's your duck. Last but not least, Aaron, are you ready? Come on down, Aaron. She knew. As soon as she didn't get picked second to last, she's like, I got this, right? Aaron got good practice at this last week at our internal competition down in Eugene. And you won the elevator pitch competition there, didn't you? So, you ready, girl?
Once I put this on.
Almost. There you go. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So I just give you a moment.
College athletics turned into the Wild Wild West on July 1st, 2021, when the NCAA allows student athletes to profit off their name, image, and likeness, or NIL. Influencer marketing is already a $16.5 billion industry, and with NIL in the fold, we expect that number to skyrocket. High-profile athletes are signing multi-million-dollar deals, but the primary beneficiaries have been men. Women are disadvantaged due to the lack of visibility of their sport. I'm Erin Harville, and my co-founder and I are second-year MBA students at Oregon, a top 10 sports business program in the world. And on National Girls and Women's Sport Day, 2/2/22, we founded Power Player, a web-building platform for female athletes that allows them to show who they are outside of uniform and allows brands to see their missions, visions, and interests so mutually beneficial deals can be established. We are the only NIL platform focused solely on female athletes, and we're looking to build an advisory board that supports our mission and will assist us in raising capital so we can build the platform itself. Off the court, off the turf, off the track. We're the digital home for power players in sport.
Boom. Thank you, Aaron, and thank you all. And you may certainly pick up your little ducky should you want it. So the judges are taking some notes. I'm going to take them to the feedback room. We'll make a decision, and then we will be right back with a decision and all the other awards. So we get to learn who won what, which is why you're all here, right? So get your ducky. We're back. We're ready. That was good. You guys feel better now that it's done? You're like, Peko Produce, you're like back at work right now, right? Like working on things. You guys are all amazing. You've done amazing stuff, and we thank you for all your effort. A couple of things I'm going to cover before I give away who the winners are, and before I tell you who they are. The winner of today's event will not take home the massive cup. One, because you don't want to carry this thing, and two, because it sticks with us, and we've got since 2012, we've got the winners on here. So somebody's name will go up on a new panel. We're going to have to get a new panel started, Amy. That's exciting. So that's named after Jim Reinmuth, who was the dean of the business school when we started this event back in 1991. That's a long time ago. I won't even ask how many of you were born in 1991, because that would make me feel better. That makes me feel, yes, I know, Matt. In 91? Nice. I was class of 93, man. 90s. The 90s were good. Apparently the 90s are back. Any of you that are on college campuses, the 90s and 80s are back in full effect, right? It's scary. And the second award, the second trophy that I want to talk about is the Randy Swangard Elevator Pitch Award. So this is named after the longtime director of this competition who actually pioneered the idea of an elevator pitch competition, which is he'd seen it at somewhere else, and other venture competitions like ours didn't have that. So he's like, we should have an elevator pitch competition. And so we started, and then everybody else started doing the same thing. So we started a trend there. Who didn't want their ducky? Power play, you want it? Boom. I'm glad you caught that, dude. I could have taken out one of our journalists. All right, so on with the show. The first award that I want to note is the winner of the previously awarded and announced RIF Sustainability Award to Claw Industries from SUNY Binghamton. So Sustainability Award for you guys. The next winner, winning $1,500 for the best elevator pitch, goes to Lymphasense from Johns Hopkins University. So step on up here. We've got a special thing for you. We don't have a big check, right? We just have an award. Do we have someone who can take a picture? Only one gets the big check. Someone gonna get a picture? You're our photo dude. All right.
Nice.
Awesome. Congratulations. Nice. Good work. The next award, a $1,500 prize. Oh, and by the way, that's a $2,000 prize. Don't let us forget, because RIF kicked in an extra $500, so it's $2,000. That's why I said, oh. Shit. Sorry. Sustainability. You get $2,000. You get $1,500. Still not bad. Sorry, my bad. That's why we have Amy. Winner of the best written business plan. So you all submitted business plans. We had a scoring process for that. I know the hardest part about this competition is that the business plans, like, you guys changed how much between when you submitted and now, right? So scoring what you put in, submitted. When did they submit that? April? May? March? Yeah, last month. So best written business plan goes to Peko Produce from McGill University. We caught you mid-bite. Kind of appropriate for someone with produce. There we go. All right.
Okay, wait, I think this is stuff in my teeth.
I think you're okay. You're okay. All right.
Ready, 1, 2, 3.
Nice. Congratulations. All right, and now we're going to talk about the finalist runners-up. You ready? We've got plaques. The first finalist runner-up is Beam Commerce from the University of Waterloo. There we go. Hold that. We'll get you here. All right. I don't know how we're going to do this. There we go. Got us all in there. Nice. Got it? Got it? All right, cool. Congratulations, guys. Good work. Now go make more money. Making money. They're like, we're just making money right now, sitting here. All right, our second runner-up, our second finalist runner-up. Not second. What? Sorry. Got it. Thank you. Our second, or the other runner-up of the finalist is Peko Produce from McGill University. There you go. There you did. Yeah, you got it down. Good, good, good. All right. Different. Nice. Got it? All right. That's been socialed. Congratulations. So that leaves two of our finalists. I know that it was a very tight decision between the finalist judges. All of you were amazing. All of you are doing wonderful things. A couple of you are already making money. Several of you are already making money, so good work all around. So the runner-up, the second place finalist, winning $10,000, which is nothing to sneeze at, is Lymphasense from Johns Hopkins University. You got matching little things you can put in. You can put in the office there. There you go. Awesome. Cool. Good work. Good work. Congratulations, guys. So that means that our winner is from SUNY Binghamton Claw Industries. All right, here, get there, and I'll hold this side. There you go.
Got it,
Good.
Cool beans.
Nice. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Cool. So I'm going to follow up with you. You said you'd put our name on your truck that you're going to buy with that. So we're going to, I'll send you 100%. You get the logos. We'll put the duck on there. It'll be great. So congratulations to you guys. Good work. Good work. Oh, I'm sorry. Hey, don't forget this.
Hi, thank you.
Yeah, you get to take that one. So that's for you. This one stays with us. So that's for you. You can fill that with concrete. You can fill it with concrete. Awesome. Well, that's what we've got for this 2022 event. Thank you so much for sticking with us, following through with this process. I know it's a long slog, right? You probably all completed your applications in like February, right? Early February. Now it is almost the end of April, last day of April. So thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for participating. Please go back and tell your friends and instructors at your universities about this event and say, hey, apply to Oregon's New Venture Championship. And we'll see someone else from your university next year. And we will be in touch to keep track of how you all do. We've had some amazing success stories of companies that have come through this program and gone on to launch and make a lot of money. So we want you all to do that. So thank you very much for this. There's lots of food outside. Take as much as you want. Don't leave here hungry. And enjoy the rest of your time in Portland. Cheers.